Hey, 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 everybody. We are the Serious Film Critics, and we are back for episode number 20. My name is Sam.
And I'm David.
Alrighty, been through 20 of these things, Dave, so we're plugging along here.
Yes, we are. This is a pretty big episode too.
It is indeed. We have something special planned for you guys tonight. And yeah, episode 20. We are going to be doing a perfect 10 episode. So what that is, you'll be seeing these periodically. Each of us basically pick a movie that we consider to be perfect, or also known as a perfect 10. And then we're basically just going to review them, and the one person who thinks it's a 10 will defend it a little bit and just have a discussion about what we think of the other one. So yeah, should be a pretty good little discussion there. And we also have some other good stuff. We got some news for you today, some updates in Hollyweird.
Yeah.
And we're also going to be talking about some things we've watched, so it's going to be a good episode. So how you doing today, Dave, on this December evening?
Pretty good actually. One of the movies we're doing is Oldboy, and I just finished watching it again, luckily, so that was pretty good.
Nice. And I guess it's no spoiler that is your selection for
that's my perfect 10.
A perfect 10. So the movies we will be doing, I don't think I mentioned actually the two that we'll be reviewing. We are going to be reviewing Oldboy, which is Dave's perfect 10 review, and we'll be talking about the recently released, last year, La La Land, directed by Damien Chazelle, which is my perfect 10. So it's going to be an awesome episode. Anyway, man, you been up to anything lately, or same old?
Pretty much the same old. I think I'm going to be doing some more podcasting work on the side, so keep an eye out for that. Yeah.
What's going on? Is it like a secret, or?
No. The thing we're doing with Matt's the true crime one. Well, that's pretty much.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so we're gonna need you to record for that one day.
Man.
Then I might be cooking up something with Adam. So.
Oh my God! I can't wait to hear about that. That's
yeah. I think you're gonna be
like a history podcast, or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh man. Well, I guess as soon as the information comes out about it, let me know. But I'm pretty psyched.
I don't want to create a bunch of hype for nothing yet. So
yeah, you guys are still in the lab with that one. It sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I'm doing pretty well too. Nothing much, man. I'll tell you what I'm excited about. Aaron Rodgers, my Green Bay Packers, might be returning this week. So
yeah, and the Packers might still make the playoffs
after almost losing to the winless Browns. Oh my God, I was literally like, it wasn't the televised game nationally, but they showed like overtime because I guess it was, a good game in the last seconds, and I was just sitting there on my couch with like my head between my knees watching that, and I was just thinking, if they lose to the Browns, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna lose it.
Yeah, I guess the Browns, they're probably not gonna win a game this year.
No, and I looked it up too. The Browns haven't won a game since 2015.
Oh my God, that is
we're about to go into the year 2018. And the Browns have not won a game since 2015 on Christmas Eve.
Oh, just pack it up, Browns. You're done.
Yeah, if Green Bay lost that game, I can't even imagine the memes that our friend Coates would have tagged me in.
Man.
I was sitting there fearing the onslaught that was inevitably coming.
Yeah, he would have given it to you for like 2 days after that.
Yeah, so I'm pretty pumped. Aaron Rodgers might be back this week. We have a shot at the playoffs, so that's my football fantasies right now. Other than that, I'm just kind of doing the same old. So, alrighty, I guess you want to get into some news here?
Yeah, we got some really huge news, which I don't think people are really like grasping the significance of this Disney deal. Disney's basically trying to buy 20th Century Fox, the film studio, which is, one of the biggest film studios in Hollywood.
Is it 21st Century Fox, or is it
21st Century is like the holding company or something? Like they own a bunch of stuff, and 20th Century is specifically the movie company.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say I'm used to hearing 20th Century Fox, but then I've seen it referred to as both, so I was like, oh, so I didn't realize that was like a separate branch of it.
Yeah, I guess they like created 21st Century when they spun off from News Corp a while back.
Oh, right, gotcha. I can't even. Yeah, that is just huge. It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, Fox owns like, a lot of film franchises. Big thing of this is Disney's going to get a hold of like X-Men and a lot of the MCU characters they're missing. But not even just that. I mean, Fox, they make a lot of big blockbusters. I mean, once Fox is out of the game, it's going to be Disney and then, Universal and Warner Brothers. And really, that's it.
I wonder if we could live to see a day where Disney just has a monopoly on the film industry. I mean,
I'm actually wondering if this is going to get looked at by antitrust laws at all, because I mean, this is not good for competition.
No, it's not. And you just don't want everything owned by one company, especially if that company is Disney, which just has this, Disney doesn't exactly have an avant-garde or really interesting film output. I mean, they're mostly just kind of family-friendly blockbusters or things like that. So it just doesn't bode well, I don't think, for the creation of new and interesting film and media in general.
Yeah, I mean, just means that we're going to see even more superhero movies getting pumped out, because once they get the Fantastic Four and X-Men, I mean, they're going to probably reboot both of those franchises and start rolling those movies out alongside everything else. I don't know what else. I mean, apparently they're going to get like The Simpsons and stuff too, so it makes me wonder what they're going to do with all of that.
I can't even imagine like seeing The Simpsons or something with the Disney logo flashing or God. I want they're just gonna neuter everything. Just take the bite off of it and just make it. Imagine all the promos they'll have of like Mickey Mouse interacting with Homer and stuff. Like,
yeah, Disney definitely has a history of movies getting released by them. They won't let them have content they don't like, even if it's like a studio they own.
Yeah, and I wonder if superhero wise, they're kind of like wondering where they're gonna go with the Marvel universe after the Infinity Wars, and they're kind of like, well, we'll have X-Men here in our back pocket. We can always reach into that cash cow and, mix the worlds or do something like that.
Well, did you see that article where they said they had like 20 more movies planned after Infinity War? Yeah,
I actually did see that. Ugh.
But I mean, I'm sure that they want another 20 on top of those 20 planned.
Just kill me now. Actually, I don't even think we talked about it. What did you, just a brief sidebar, what did you think of did you watch the Infinity War trailer?
I did. I mean, that trailer really didn't do anything for me. In fact,
that trailer did nothing for me. And people were just geeking out about this. There were a couple people at my work that were just losing it over that trailer, and I don't understand it. It doesn't look good to me at all. And
most of the trailer was just showing how every actor's in the movie.
Yeah, that's the whole trailer, is just literally tying in every superhero that is inevitably going to be in this movie, basically just showing them. And also, can we talk about Thanos? Is he the same?
Thanos.
Is that Thanos? Is he the same? Is that Josh Brolin or whatever? Is that the same
from Guardians of the Galaxy?
Man, he looks really different. Does he have a helmet on in the other movies or something?
They changed his color, and I'm not sure if that's a lore thing or what. Probably is, but he did not really look good.
He doesn't look good, and there's memes everywhere of him as Homer Simpson and stuff. And
yeah,
I think I sent one of the group chat of all of us with him as Rick from Pawn Stars.
Oh yeah, that was
he just he looks terrible. It doesn't I feel like he looks. His detailing on his face just looks so circa 2003 or something. It just doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, they better hope that that's not the final product. I mean, I guess it's not coming out for a while.
Or at least put that guy's helmet back on, man. He looks completely different without his helmet on. He just looks like, I don't know, he looks like he'd just be crushing a beer at the bar or something. He doesn't look isn't this guy Thanos? Isn't he the big villain in the MCU? Or?
Oh yeah, I mean he is I'm sure in the first movie he's literally gonna crush them like bugs.
Yeah, because what are his powers? He has infinite powers, pretty much, right?
I mean, he is I'm not sure what all his powers are, but once he has an Infinity Gauntlet, he can freaking do whatever he wants. He's higher than a god.
Oh my god!
And I mean, there's nobody in the MCU except for maybe Doctor Strange that is even remotely comparable to him. So probably what they're gonna have to do is come up with some really convoluted strategy to beat him in the second movie.
Oh right, I forgot that it's being released in 2 parts. I mean, I should have known, obviously, but I forgot about that.
Maybe they'll surprise us with a 3rd part.
Yeah, imagine if they just kept breaking it up into new parts. Oh, Infinity War Part 6. Oh my god.
I mean, and the other thing is in that trailer, the only scenes that weren't just showing off all the actors which I also want to talk about in a second, is like was just like these giant fight scenes that like didn't really look interesting.
No, it looked just so amateurish or just stupid. Like scenes of all the heroes just running into battle or stuff like that.
And also, you know, I wonder like how many actors are going to get like less than 1 or 2 scenes in this movie, because you know with that many stars, they're not going to have them all on set for like weeks on end. You know, there's going to be a lot of stars that literally get a single scene.
Well, even in terms of money, imagine how much they're having to pay all these big name actors to be in this movie. I'm sure they're going to be relegating.
Well, you know, Chris Evans, they signed like a dirt cheap contract because he wasn't a huge star before the first Avengers. So like, I think they signed him to like a 10 movie contract, so they don't have to pay him that much.
Man, that's surprising. But you know, Robert Downey Jr. I'm sure is getting paid out the ass.
Oh yeah, he made like $50 million off the Avengers or something, and that was why they cut a lot of the actors, because they didn't want to pay them. They tried to get as many actors on the cheap as they could. And I'm sure that like Benedict Cumberbatch and guys like that are getting paid a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not coming cheap. And then you have the whole cast of they showed the Guardians of the Galaxy people in it. And
yeah, but I mean, you got to figure Chris Pratt's really the only person that's going to get paid a lot.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's really the only super high profile actor, but I don't know.
They said that they were paying a lot of the actors in the Avengers like $1 million for the movie.
Oh my God. It's just going to be, there's no way they're going to be able to establish real compelling storylines for all those different characters in one movie.
No way.
It's just going to be just this hodgepodge of just bullshit little scenes of trying to, you know, with them cracking one-liners, and then we're just going to have fight scenes. It's not going to be good.
It's probably going to be like 4 or 5 parallel storylines that it's constantly going to be jumping back and forth between. Like, it'll show Captain America doing one thing, and then it'll jump to like Ant-Man, and then jump to Doctor Strange, and it's just constantly going to have to be switching around.
Yeah, you know some of them are going to die in this movie, or maybe not this one, maybe part 2, but I'm sure they're going to clean house and get rid of some of these guys.
Yeah, I think, which is not a bad idea. I already saw speculation that Hawkeye was done for.
Well, Hawkeye is like the least memorable hero
really
that I can think of. I almost forget that he's in all these movies. He's so boring. Also, Scarlett Johansson does nothing. I mean, she's basically in there as like a sex symbol. Like, she doesn't
really, her character is terrible, and she's a terrible actress. So
yeah, she does nothing, and then I don't know. I just think it looks like a complete mess, and I think it's going to be a complete mess. But something tells me it's going to be like a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, like, what do you think the box office is going to be?
Yeah, I can see it. Oh my God. I mean, I would think over $1 billion for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of. What did the first Avengers do? 2 billion or?
It definitely did over $1 billion. I know that. And this movie is like marketing itself as obviously the king of the Avengers movies. So I can't imagine how much it's going to make. And just judging from just people I'm seeing on my Facebook, people I've interacted with at work or just talked to movies with, they are so pumped for this movie. It's like Christmas morning, and I just can't. I don't know. I don't understand it. I mean, I guess it's the same feeling that I have with like Star Wars or something, but I don't know. I just can't. It's like people don't have any ability to critically think about these movies. It's just
the average person doesn't use critical analysis on any movie they watch.
Very true, very true. That's why they need to listen to the serious film critics.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, it's gonna be a mess. Anyway, what were we talking about again?
Well, we can move on from that to Bryan Singer.
Oh, right, Bryan Singer.
Yeah, so Bryan Singer, who has directed...
He's been a bad boy.
Yeah. In case you don't know, he directed Usual Suspects, some of the X-Men movies. I think the first one, maybe the first 2. Superman
I think he
Returns.
Did X-Men.
And he was
did he do that X-Men
biopic.
First Class or whatever?
What? Oh, yeah. I don't know if he did First Class, actually.
Or Days of Future Past, one of those.
Yeah, he's produced all of them.
Oh, right.
And he was working on a Queen biopic called Bohemian Rhapsody, which he was recently fired for. And the official reason was that he was fighting on set and he basically disappeared and didn't come back to work. But then it came out that he's being sued by a guy who claims that he sexually assaulted him or raped him on a boat in like 2003.
Man, oh man. Another one bites the dust pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is pretty much it. I don't know. I mean, he's actually had multiple lawsuits against him before, and they all went away. And, you know, they were all discredited. But, I mean, at the same time, when you have like 4 lawsuits for the same thing against you, it's like, I mean,
Yeah, you can't
really be nothing.
There's really no defending him at this point. He's obviously done some really, really bad stuff. So, at this point, he kind of needs to just walk off into the. Well, I don't want to say walk off into the sunset because that makes it seem like romantic and good. Like he just needs to disappear. Pretty much.
I mean, maybe this claim will be the one that actually has weight and sinks him.
These dominoes just keep falling, man. I luckily I wasn't like a huge Bryan Singer fan. I mean, I like Usual Suspects a lot, but oh god, I mean, imagine if something like this happened to like Scorsese or someone like that and they disappear. That would just be heartbreaking.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of like the legends have gone down yet, except Kevin Spacey, but it's bound to happen.
Yeah, I just by considering how many people have been called out lately, you just don't know who's going to be next.
Yeah,
it's kind of. Alrighty, should we get on to some stuff we've been watching?
Yeah, let's move on from this.
All right, so I guess you want to kick us off and do some stuff?
Oh yeah, first I want to talk about. I was just chilling with Adam and this show called The Girlfriend Experience came on, and it was just a random episode, and I had never seen it before. I didn't know what it was about.
Oh, so this wasn't the pilot of it?
No. This is like a random episode from season 2.
Oh man.
And for people that had no idea the context of the show, like we had no idea what was going on until like the last 5 minutes, because it was like it opened with like this voiceover of this woman asking if she could like borrow a car or something.
Yeah.
And then it showed like this guy bugging her house, which turns out it was like a U.S. Marshal, and she's in witness protection.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like every single scene of the show is like a long single take. It's like the camera's moving in slow. I think Steven Soderbergh produces it, and it kind of looks like stuff he's done in some of his movies.
I gotcha. I can already picture it now, like all those scenes in Ocean's 11 where the camera is just tracking into the house or tracking into the vault of the casino.
And it's like long, slow takes, and like tons of what they like to do too is like it'll have like a close up of somebody, and then someone off screen is talking to them.
Oh yeah,
yeah, but
like. Almost like ADR recording or something, like they just threw the line in there.
The best was that it came up like 3 times during the episode. It was like it showed her wearing like this thing on her head, and like the U.S. Marshal was talking to her, and he was saying like this weird stuff to her, and he was like, I can't remember what he was saying at first, but then he was like saying like, "You're beautiful. Now say it. I'm beautiful," and he kept repeating it. And like I think he was like literally supposed to be like a mind control device, because he was trying to like make her believe things, but the entire episode was portrayed as like extremely realistic, and then she literally was wearing something that looked like a freaking mind control machine.
What? That's what I was gonna ask. Is this played like procedurally, like a realistic?
Oh yeah,
cop?
Very realistically. And then he uses it to make her have sex with him.
What?
Yeah. And I don't know what the heck it was, because it was like she was wearing this thing on her head, and then like it would flash in her eyes, and he would say something like, "You're beautiful," or "You're strong." Now say it. I'm strong.
It sounds like they pretty much stole the little flashy thingy from Men in Black and just used it for nefarious purposes in this show.
Yeah, I mean, everything else in the show was like supposed to be realistic, and I can't figure out what it was, and it just
was the narrative focused on like a single character? Was it?
Yeah, it was focused on the woman. She's like a escort, and she's in witness protection because like her old boyfriend is like a mob boss or something.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, and she has a U.S. Marshal protecting her who, like, yeah, the whole episode he's, like, watching her. She's, like, she goes back to hooking, basically, and he gets really mad about it. So then he uses his mind control machine to basically dominate her.
What?
I don't know how to describe what it was. I really don't know what it was.
I can just see you guys sitting there on the couch watching this thing, and Adam probably had this squinty-eyed look on his face, completely confused.
We were just, like, flabbergasted. We're like, what is this thing? What is it? Because there was like no like indication that it was like anything other than something to literally influence her thoughts.
It almost seems like just a terrible version of like something you'd see on Twin Peaks or something.
maybe that's the twist of the show. I'm sure that thing is supposed to be something real, but I googled it. I couldn't figure out what it was either.
Oh man, who's the show? It's Soderbergh is the executive producer.
Soderbergh produces it, I think.
Man, it sounds pretty terrible, though.
I mean, it's like it was shot like in a way, like a perfect example is like the opening scene of Beyond the Gates, where it's like that long take of him sitting in the car. Like every scene was basically like that. And it's like, you know, that shot in a way I think is well done, but also got really tiring because every scene was like that. Like, in fact, they even had scenes that really mirrored that. Like when he was like sitting in his car tailing her, they'd have like that exact same shot set up, only with him in the car, like staring at her.
Oh man, kind of like a single take type thing, like all
like
in one.
A lot of long single takes. Yeah.
That's the thing right now. I feel like every movie and every director is trying to incorporate that into their show or movie. Like, we gotta have a scene in there with a really long single take, if not multiple of those.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I feel like it's getting really old. And one of the movies we're talking about in a bit, Oldboy, is like, I feel like was one of the movies that revolutionized that idea.
Oh yeah, they have a pretty. It's funny too because I feel like that Oldboy is like one of the better edited movies I've ever seen because it's got the long single take and then it has a lot of good editing with the jump cuts and stuff and other parts of the movies. So it doesn't like fall back on the single take thing.
Yeah, if you keep doing single takes like that, it's going to get incredibly old and boring. Because it's just not enough mix up in the editing process.
Yeah, like it doesn't make your movie good just because every scene is just a long single take.
I would love to see an interview with Soderbergh talking about this thing. Something tells me he's probably got some pretty pretentious things to say as to why you should watch it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh.
He's...
The mind control device actually represents consumerism.
I seriously cannot figure out what that thing was because it was like she was like wearing like these wires were hanging off her temples and then there was like a thing flashing in front of her eyes constantly.
Did you guys just watch one episode or?
Yeah, we just watched that one episode and I don't have a desire to see another one, but I really want to know what that thing on her head was.
Yeah, you got to look up some spoilers on that. You can't find anything?
I looked up like the synopsis for the episode and that was missing from the synopsis.
What?
Like what the heck? What could it be? Like I thought it was like a freaking what are they called? Where it sees if you're telling the truth or not.
Oh, like a lie detector?
Yeah, like a lie detector test, but it obviously wasn't because he was like repeating stuff to her and making her say it.
I wonder if it's featured in like other episodes of the show and you have to just go into it knowing what it is or something.
It's got to be something real because the show was very portrayed as a realistic show other than I don't know what that could be. I don't know. It's got to be something real.
Did it play it as if that detective character was a recurring character? Or?
Yeah, he definitely was a recurring character.
Oy, I don't know, man.
Yeah, the mystery remains unsolved as of now. I'm sure one of you listeners knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, if any of you guys have watched, what's it called again?
The Girlfriend Experience.
The Girlfriend Experience, a very famous show executive produced by Steven Soderbergh on Showtime.
It might be Showtime or Cinemax, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, yes. Send us your spoilers and maybe we'll talk about it next episode.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So what else have you been watching?
Yeah, the other thing I've been watching a lot of is The Office, and I actually really want to ask you some stuff about this show.
The American version.
Yep. Yeah, obviously. Not going to watch the British version.
No, it's not bad. I like it, but it is painfully awkward at times. And I like awkward humor, but there are times in the British version where it's almost unbearable.
I mean, yeah.
But anyway, so where are you at this point? I know you've been watching it for
almost done with season 7. I'm actually right at the part where Michael leaves.
Oh man, that's an emotional one.
Yeah, I'm chugging along. But I noticed that the show really had like this major tonal shift, like season 5-ish, and like I feel like the show actually got funnier when that happened. But I'm kind of wondering what the general opinion is on that because I noticed like I'm sure you noticed too, Michael got like way more competent as the show went on, and like it seemed like he was like the show became a lot less mean-spirited. Like, people seems like by the end of the show, they really like him. And in the first 2 or 3 seasons, they couldn't stand him. And it's like they made all the characters a lot more likable. And they also, the main thing was who was Dwight, it seemed like he turned into a really different character as the show went on.
Yeah, I would say Dwight changes quite a bit, and Andy.
Andy does, absolutely. I think Andy, people actually complained about how unlikable he was.
Yeah, he completely changes. Have you gotten to the episode where Michael leaves yet?
I'm actually I was in the middle of that one.
Well, basically, spoiler, he leaves, as you know, and a lot of people are emotional about it in the office, and you can't see that happening based on how they treat him in earlier seasons. But
yeah, it seems like he just does way less stupid stuff as it goes on.
Yeah, well, I think that's another thing about the show is they kind of have to justify the Dunder Mifflin branch staying, or the Scranton branch staying open continually. And I think a lot of people were probably wondering in earlier seasons, like, how does this branch stay open? Yeah, I know it's not the most realistic show, so a lot of people probably weren't asking these pragmatic logic questions. But at the same time, this branch is somehow managing to like stay competent despite the fact that their boss is insane. And I think they kind of, as the show goes on, they definitely have more moments where he's shown excelling, or at the very least doing something outside the box to make sales, or to make come up with a new idea or something like that, so the branch stays relevant. So I think that's kind of interesting how they do that.
What did you think about Dwight when they changed him? Because I'm not sure, like, I mean, I don't feel like he was any more realistic when they changed him, but I feel like he was a lot more likable again.
I don't know. Well, my overall like opinion on the show, I like it less the further it goes on. I'm not sure what the general consensus is. I definitely know some hardcore fans of The Office, and they seem to just love the show throughout. Me personally, I'm all about seasons, I would say 2 through 5. Like, those are definitely, I think those are gold. And I would say 5 and like halfway through 5 and into 6 are pretty, like, they're good. And maybe even into season 7, when up until the point Michael leaves, I like the show. After that, I really would have stopped watching if I wasn't so loyal to it. But I like it earlier on because, for one thing, I love the Jim and Pam romance, like, before they're together. I just think, I know it's been done before, but I think it's just played really well. I know, like, I'll watch it with my girlfriend Jessa, and she's like, oh, they're stringing us along, and I can definitely see that, but I think it's done realistically, and I believe all the things that happen and reasons why they're not together. So I like the drama that's built into it through seasons, 1 through 4, and then I just like all the other characters. I feel like the show is harsher. I like it when it's more...
Yeah, it's a lot more mean-spirited in the beginning.
I like those more really awkward situations, and I feel like it just kind of... neuters the characters as the show goes on, and I don't know. I wasn't as crazy about it. I think there's still a lot of funny moments the later seasons, but for me, I'm all about like seasons 2 through 5, and I like season 1 too, but season 1 is almost a direct copy of the British Office in terms of the jokes and stuff.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And I hate how they changed Andy specifically. I know Dwight changes. He just kind of becomes more...
Well, one thing, he turns into a ladies' man. Which...
Yeah, he basically just becomes less of a freak.
Yeah, pretty much. He becomes like less of a nerd and less socially oblivious. I mean, he's way more like, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but it seems like he's much more like cool almost. Like, he's actually a cooler dude.
Yeah, he is. He does become like the cool guy. I mean, there's one episode where he's at the wedding and like he just hooks up with like one of the bridesmaids or whatever, and he's just like so nonchalant about it. And you cannot see Dwight from season 2 acting that way. And I guess you're supposed to believe like his relationship with Angela maybe changed him, or made him more confident or whatever. But that's cool. That's interesting that you're liking it more as it goes on, because
I think it's funnier. I think the cold opens get better too in the later seasons.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I like the earlier ones with Jim's pranks on Dwight. I feel like it's more simple too. I feel like it gets... I still laugh at some of the later ones, but I feel like it's almost a different kind of comedy. I feel like it almost goes from semi-realistic and to more like absurd. I mean, there's the one cold open where Jim have you gotten to the one where he has the Asian actor come in and pretend to be him?
Yeah.
And like his actor friend, this Asian guy, pretend to be Jim, and Dwight just falls for it. And, like, I love that. I think it's funny, but it's also like totally disconnected from reality, where I feel like a lot of the pranks in the earlier cold opens in the earlier seasons are things that could technically work most of the time.
Well, my favorite cold open is the one where he has Dwight tells Aaron to say she won an art contest, and Pam like looks like she's about to cry.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, all it is literally like Aaron just randomly says she won an art contest, and Jim and Pam just like look super upset. And then Dwight admits he was a prank he played on Pam, and she's like ultra pissed at him. I thought it was so funny.
Yeah, it's pretty good. That is pretty good. I vaguely remember that. But I also just like, again, I think I like the drama in that show, and I feel like the drama is so much more. Obviously, it's more effective in the earlier seasons because they push it a lot more. And I guess if you're looking for more of an absurdist kind of comedy, I feel like 5, 6, even 7 are a lot more successful at that. But I like it when there's those moments of drama. Like, I like when Michael is shunned by everybody or basically this fool, because there are moments, even in those early seasons, where a character will do something nice for him. And I feel like those moments are more powerful. Like, the one I think of is where, do you remember the one where Jim has a barbecue, or not, I don't know if it's a barbecue or like some kind of party, and he invites everybody in the office but Michael. But then Michael ends up showing up anyway, and he starts like just taking over the whole party and just ruining it. And then he ends up singing karaoke, and after like just totally embarrassing himself, or when he's about to totally embarrass himself, Jim goes up there and sings with him. Like, I love those kinds of moments, and I feel like they're a lot more prevalent in the earlier seasons because Michael is so disconnected from everyone else in the office. I feel like in the later seasons he does, like, I feel like a lot of the characters become just generally more likable and get along better with each other. And I think sometimes that makes for a better comedy, but I think the drama that's present in those earlier seasons is kind of lost, and I love that.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It's definitely a much less realistic show by the end.
Yeah, it's totally goes out this. And once like other bosses start, I mean, I'm sure that's not going to be a big spoiler for you, but like other bosses come in to replace Michael when he leaves, and it just gets so ridiculous. There's like Jim Carrey coming in for interviews, and it just goes off the deep end. But we'll have to touch. I'm really curious to see what you feel about the last couple seasons after Michael leaves, because to me those are just like shells of the former show.
One thing I really don't like is when they start interacting with the camera crew near the end. I'm not a fan with that.
Yeah, that happens more. As the show goes on, and I hate that too. I like
feel
it
like
when
if they didn't do it at all for like seasons 1 through 6, then they shouldn't start doing it after like 6 years of filming.
No, exactly. When you think about how much time has gone by, why weren't they interacting with the camera crew more as time throughout all those years? Because there were years that went by, and you never. I like the show when it's almost like you don't think it is a mockumentary.
Yeah, me too. Because like there are places the camera crew would never be, and that's a problem too.
Yeah, and when you think about it, there are intimate moments and intimate conversations that it just doesn't feel real at all. And even the way it's shot, it doesn't look like it's being filmed by a camera crew, or it doesn't look like a documentary. It looks like just a show. And I like those. Those are some of my favorite moments. And in earlier seasons, they'll occasionally have like an in-joke or a meta joke about how it is a camera crew, but it's just done so sparingly that you kind of forget about it. And
yeah, like
I think
sometimes the cameraman will get locked out or whatever.
Yeah, or like a character will be in like a vulnerable moment, like Michael will be like crying in his office in a fetal position. The camera crew will like go around and like look through the blinds and you see him, or something like that, and that works. But once you start interacting with the camera crew, and I think one of the camera crew guys gets a name later in the later seasons, or if that hasn't already happened, and I'm not crazy about that. But yeah, we'll have to check back in when you're almost done with the show or in the very later seasons, because I have those are the seasons I have real problems with. I still like season 5, 6, and 7. Seasons whatever it is, 8. I don't even know if there's 10. 8, and 9 are just brutal.
Yeah, I'm curious how much because I'm still going pretty strong, but I think once Michael leaves, the show's gonna deflate a lot.
It does, in my opinion, but we'll see. We'll check back with you. All right, do you have any other stuff you watched, or you want to?
No, I think that's it.
Well, I just watched a bunch of movies, so I'll kind of mow through some of these. Let's see. I watched Men in Black. Jessa had never seen it before, or like hadn't seen it. I know, right? She'd never seen it all the way through, so we watched that, and she loved it. And is that like one of those like nostalgia classics for you? I'm sure we've talked about it a bunch of times, but I can never remember.
I think it's a pretty good comedy. It's not like a super nostalgic film for me.
It is for me. Like, that's one of those movies I just loved in the 90s, and I just kind of put on my blinders whenever I watch it. I think it's just the funniest thing. I just love it. I'd never seen this, Jackie Brown.
I have seen a little bit of that.
And I loved it. I was shocked. Like, it always just never really appealed to me as one of Tarantino's and I feel like it always is kind of one of Tarantino's forgotten movies. I feel like it's like the odd man out whenever you discuss Tarantino movies, and I thought it was amazing. Like, I would honestly I might put it as at number 2 right now.
Wow.
It's right there with Reservoir Dogs for me for the number 2 spot. Obviously, Pulp Fiction is my favorite, but it's more low key than his other movies. It's not like his dialogue is obviously still a huge factor, but the storyline is just almost more of like a procedural cop drama, or like, involving drugs and drug dealers and stuff like that. It's more low key and nuanced than most of his other pretty much all of his other movies. And De Niro is actually really good in it. He plays this kind of stoned out drug dealer who works with Samuel L. Jackson's character, who's a drug kingpin. He's also really good in it. And De Niro just kind of is like oblivious the whole time. He's just smoking pot like the whole movie, and he's just kind of spaced out, and he's basically he just got out of prison, and he just kind of is a criminal who's lost a step, and he's really, really good in it. And Pam Grier is like this flight attendant who works with Samuel Jackson. She's really good. Robert Forster is her love interest. He's great. Like, it's a really, really good one. I loved it. I watched this movie called Inner Space, which is an 80s movie with Dennis Quaid and Martin Short. And it's basically it was something. I actually liked it. I didn't love it, but basically Martin Short plays this grocery store worker, and Dennis Quaid is this hotshot pilot, but he's really lazy, and basically he's really talented, but he's like has a problem with authority, and he's never like on time, stuff like that. So he ends up signing up for this top secret governmental project about where they can shrink you down. So he ends up getting shrunk down in this like ship, and this bad government, I guess like some rival outfit, destroys the lab. So Dennis Quaid is basically stuck in this tiny version, and one of the scientists escapes the bad guys and injects Dennis Quaid into Martin Short's character. So it's basically like a mixture of this zany comedy where Dennis Quaid is basically flying around inside of Martin Short throughout the whole movie, and mixed with sort of this espionage type thriller. And it was pretty good. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Definitely sounds interesting.
The thing to look for, the practical effects are awesome in this movie. Like, just judging on a description of it, I would think the effects would be horrendous. But they use so many cool practical effects in the movie, and I think the effects are really good. Especially when Dennis Quaid is flying around inside of Martin Short. They have so many cool set pieces about where he's dodging like water that's being drunk, and like him interacting with Martin Short's eyeballs. Like, it's really well done. I watched a couple documentaries. One is called Gates of Heaven. It's on Netflix by this guy Errol Morris. And basically it's about pet cemeteries in California in the 70s. It's a really obscure subject. And it's just, I think because of that, it's just interesting. It's basically just interviews with these interesting but quirky people who run pet cemeteries in 1970s California, and basically the hoops that they have to jump through to keep their pet cemeteries active and all that stuff. It's really, really interesting. I also watched Encounters at the End of the World, which is a Werner Herzog documentary basically about him exploring desolate parts of Antarctica, and that's got some really cool visuals. And the only other thing I watched is went to the theaters with some friends to see that Murder on the Orient Express, which I wasn't crazy about seeing. But
how was it?
It was okay. Just kind of a middle of the road suspenseful movie. I mean, it wasn't bad. Kenneth Branagh is good. He plays that detective Hercule Poirot or whatever his name is, and he's good. Other than that, it just feels like a lot of actors playing dress up. Like, there's so many big name actors in this movie. Like, Daisy Ridley from Star Wars is in it. Josh Gad is in it. Willem Dafoe. Like, basically everybody on the train. It's basically just a murder mystery set on this train, and everybody on the train is just some really famous actor, and each of them has a suspicious story to tell, and it's Kenneth Branagh's character just going along interviewing everybody, and there's some cool visuals, and the mystery is kind of interesting. But the one thing about this movie, Johnny Depp is in it, and he is terrible.
Really?
He has this weird accent. Like, I don't know if he was going for like almost a Brooklyn accent, and he just looks kind of weird, and it's just a strange movie. And I think this is one of his first roles that he did after all those allegations against him were released. And it just plays really strangely because he basically is this really abusive, basically a killer in the movie. So it's strange. He's not good in it, and it's weird. But I wouldn't necessarily. If you're really bored, check it out. But it's nothing. It's just kind of an average movie. Not bad. So yeah, that's what I've been watching.
All right, so we've already been going for a while here, so we probably should get into these.
Yeah, let's get into these reviews. So all right, the first movie is Dave's perfect 10 movie. He would give this thing a solid 10 out of 10, and that is Oldboy from 2003?
Yeah, 2003.
All right, so I guess, Dave, you want to give us a synopsis on this thing? Or
Yeah, so this is,
I'm going to run and grab a water real quick, so just go for a second, I'll be right back.
All right. Yeah, so this is a film by Park Chan-wook starring, what's his name? Min-suk Choi Min-sik. And it's actually the second movie in his trilogy of revenge movies. The first one is like Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, and the third one is Sympathy for Lady Vengeance. And the second one is Oldboy, which is by far the best, but they're all pretty good. And this is basically a story of a man named Ode Soo, and it opens with he's in a police station, and he's really drunk, and I guess he got arrested for being drunk, and he explains as his daughter's birthday, and he's like just being like really belligerent, and eventually they have to handcuff him to the bench, and finally like his friend shows up. I think it's Juwon shows up and bails him out and takes him to a phone booth where he calls his daughter on the phone.
Wait, is Juwon his friend, or is that the
that's his friend?
What's the name of? Okay, I get the names mixed up in this.
The villain is like Woo Jin, I think.
Oh, Woo Jin. Okay, I thought it was Ju. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
And the names are a little hard to remember since it's not in English.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he gets kidnapped and locked in it's like a hotel room basically. I guess it's in a big apartment building he's in. And these guys kidnapped him, they put him in a room, they don't explain why he's there. And the entire time they will like feed him, they keep him in a room with the TV, and then every once in a while they'll drug his room with gas so they can come and give him a haircut, or if he tries to kill himself, they'll come in and save him. So at first he has like no idea why he's getting out, and then he just basically like starts training by like watching martial arts on TV. And he also starts trying to tunnel out with a chopstick. And he starts like tattooing notches in his arm for every year he's in there. So in the 15th year, when he's just about to like actually tunnel out on his own, a woman comes in there, gasses him, and then hypnotizes him. And when he wakes up, I forgot to explain the opening scene of the movie. Yeah, actually, I don't want to backtrack too much. The very first scene of the film is Ode Soo's holding a guy by his tie, and he's hanging off the edge of a building, and he's like, let me tell you my story. Yeah, so basically he's holding a guy off.
Such a good opening.
You know, the implication is that he's like threatening to kill the guy. So anyway, come back to he gets hypnotized and he's back out on the roof, and we see that the guy was actually trying to jump to his death, and Ode Soo grabs him by his tie because he wants someone to hear his story before he jumps off the roof. So he explains to the guy like his plight, and then the guy is like, wow, that's really messed up. Let me tell you my story. And then he just obviously doesn't care, so he gets up and walks away. So then he goes in an elevator, and I didn't really understand what happened in the elevator scene with the woman.
I didn't really either. There were definitely some scenes in the movie like that where it was kind of unclear to me.
Yeah, he basically just freaks out because he sees a woman for the first time in 15 years. And then when he leaves, we see the woman like talking to a security guard, like yelling. So obviously he did something.
Yeah.
And then we see the guy that from earlier jumps to his death off the roof.
Yeah, that's a classic image.
Yeah, so now he's out, and he basically decides he needs to figure out why he was in prison and get revenge. So he decides to go test his new TV fighting skills on just like a random group of thugs he finds on the street.
One of my favorite.
Yeah, he walks down under this.
Yeah. Go ahead.
He walks down to this underpass and they're just smoking. He like takes the cigarette out of the kid's mouth, and then they pick a fight with him, and he beats all their butts. So
one of my favorite,
like a really good fighter now.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines is just it says something like, "I wonder if I can apply these fighting skills I've learned in real life."
Yeah, like,
and then he kicks all their asses, and he's like, "Apparently, I can."
Yeah, it's like his 10 years worth of imaginary training. Like,
yeah.
Work in the real world. Apparently, yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. So then he goes to a sushi restaurant, and I don't remember why he's there. I think he's just there because he wants to eat an octopus. And he is talking to the sushi chef, who is a young woman named Mito. And before this, a guy on the street gives him a cell phone and some money. So he's in there, and he tells the woman he wants to eat something alive. So she puts a live octopus on his plate. And before he eats it, he gets a phone call, and it's from the guy that abducted him, who we find out his name's Wu Jin.
Right.
Or Su Jin. I think it's
Wu Jin. It's
Yeah, Wu Jin. And he basically just tells him that he wants him to figure out why he was imprisoned so he can get revenge. So he eats the octopus and then passes out when Mito touches his hand. So then he wakes up in Mito's apartment, and she explains that he got the flu because he hasn't seen sunlight for 15 years. Or he explains that to her.
Yeah.
And then she goes to the bathroom and takes a knife with her and is like, if you try anything, I'm going to stab you. And then for some reason, he still bursts into the bathroom and tries to, like, rape her, basically.
Yeah.
And then she hits him in the head with a knife, and he, like, is like, all right, well, I need to leave because that was really wrong. And she's like, well, no, it's okay, even though it's obviously not okay.
No.
So then I think his first lead on to figure out how to this whole time he was there, he was eating Chinese food, and he ate it so much that he knows that if he tasted it again, he would know exactly that it was the same Chinese food he was eating in prison.
Oh, right, the fried dumplings.
Yeah, so he goes around town and tries like hundreds of Chinese restaurants until he finally finds the one, and then he follows the delivery man, who apparently is like delivers the food really far, and he follows him to an apartment building. Oh, he takes a hammer with him, which is important.
Oh, yes, it is.
So he follows the delivery man to an apartment building, and he goes up there, and he finds the guy running the operation where they kidnap people in there, and he interrogates him and tortures him by ripping like 15 of his teeth out with a hammer.
Class.
Which is extremely gruesome.
Classic.
Yeah. And then he gets a tape from the guy, and all it says is that he has a big mouth. And that's the reason he was getting put in prison for 15 years.
Sounds reasonable to me.
So then, yeah. And then on the way out, basically all of the, I don't know what the guy's name is that runs the prison. All his like thugs.
I think his name is it Mr. Park?
That sounds right, Mr. Park.
I think it's Mr. Park.
Yeah, I think it's Mr. Park. That sounds right. Yeah, so on the way out, he throws the Mr. Park, and he's like, you need to take him to the hospital. And then it starts this very incredibly well done single take fight sequence where he takes on like 15 guys with a hammer in a hallway.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the most famous fight scenes of all time.
Yeah, it's extremely well done. He basically like just somehow manages to beat them all with just a hammer. He's like smashing their feet and doing work.
And it's so impressive because it manages to feel both stylized and realistic at the same time. And
yeah, like the fighting is good, but it also like really liked how everybody in the fight got really tired pretty quick.
Yeah, and those punches, man, just you like feel them, and you can see like especially that guy without his shirt on, like his whole like stomach just like rolls whenever he gets punched, and it's just like, oh, you just feel those gut punches.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the better one of the most famous fight scenes ever, and. And then he goes to the elevator, and there's even more guys waiting for him, and he beats all of them to... I don't know if he killed them or what, but...
Yeah. He does it off screen this time. They just fall out of the elevator after he gets off.
Yeah. Well, that's after they call on the run.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so then he goes back to Mito's apartment. Gosh.
I know.
And somehow he figures out that what's his name is across the street, Wu Jin. So he goes there and talks to him, and he explains that he has 5 days to figure out why he imprisoned him, or he'll kill Mito. And if he does figure out the reason, he'll kill himself instead. And he also explains that he has a pacemaker and he has a button he can press to turn it off at any time. So that's why he can't torture him. And he also has a bodyguard with him, which is relevant. So he goes back to his apartment, Mito's apartment, to find out that Mr. Park is there with some new teeth and a bunch of his goons who are like, I thought it was really funny that like some of them were on crutches and stuff.
I wonder if those teeth are a Jaws reference from James Bond.
It's possible.
Could be.
Yeah, so then he goes in there and he gets like taken down. So he's about to like get all his teeth ripped out. And when the bodyguard comes across and gives him a whole bunch of money to leave him alone. And on the way out, of course, he hits Odesu with the baseball bat once, and then it's like, all right, let's go. So then they leave, and then I think Odesu goes to the internet cafe next, and because he finds out that the guy's name is Evergreen, and that they went to I think it was like Evergreen High School or something.
Yeah,
the Evergreen Oldboys. So then they I think this is when they go on the run, or maybe they went on the run earlier. Either way, they go on the run, they finally have sex, and then Woo Jin figures it out, and he actually gasses the room they're in again while they're asleep, and then has a weird little moment with Mito, which the bodyguard obviously like doesn't approve of.
No, he doesn't like that.
So then he finds out that they went to the same high school together, and he tries to remember like what he did at high school. So then he finally goes to I don't remember if he tells him where he's at or if he just gets his address, because then he's like decides to leave Mito with Mr. Park, because he had cut off Mr. Park's hand and given it to Odesu, because basically Odesu said he was going to cut off Mr. Park's hand. And Woo Jin has this weird fascination with Odesu. So he goes to have this final showdown, and he leaves Mito with him. He's basically like, if I don't call, she's, I'm dead. He goes in there and he asks him, first he kills like two of his bodyguards, and then he asks him like what the deal is. And then he explains to him what happened, where he basically, the big reveal with Woo Jin was that Woo Jin was committing incest with his sister, and Odesu saw it.
Oh yeah, he saw every bit of it.
Yeah. And then he told his friend Juwan, who also was killed earlier, which I forgot to mention. This movie really has a complicated plot.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happens. You need to see. Everyone needs to see.
Yeah, just bear with us. First, he just attacks the bodyguard, and he is about to die and get on the ropes when Woo Jin shoots the bodyguard because he doesn't want Odesu to die. And then Woo Jin reveals to like what he did to get payback on Odesu. And he first he explains how Odesu and Mito were both very good candidates for hypnosis. And then he gives him like a photo album of his family. Oh
man, that photo album scene.
It's like the first pictures are like of him with his daughter, and then it shows as his daughter's getting older, and then the last picture is his daughter now, and it turns out his daughter was Mito, so he basically hypnotized him into having incest with his daughter as payback for telling on him, because his sister committed suicide after the rumor went around.
Yeah, man, Odesu really gets it. That's on top of the 15 years he spent in the room.
Yeah, for something that not necessarily his fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then he begs for forgiveness, but Woo Jin isn't having any of it. And then he offers to cut his tongue out as penance, and he cuts his tongue out, and Woo Jin thinks it's hilarious. And he's like, all right, we're good now. So then he calls Mr. Park and tells him not to tell Mito the truth. And then he goes in the elevator and shoots himself. And it turns out the pacemaker thing was a lie. And when he presses the button, it just plays a recording of him having sex with Mito.
Man.
That's rough.
At every turn, it's just turn it.
Yeah, Odesu really, he gets it good.
He gets it real good.
And then the scene after that is Odesu travels out into the mountains to find the person that hypnotized him in the beginning of the film. And he basically asked her to hypnotize him so that he'll forget. This is what I really want to talk about. He basically hypnotizes her to have him forget that Mito is his daughter so he can have a relationship with her.
Well, yeah, he wants to have a normal, like, father-daughter relationship, though, right?
No, he hypnotizes her to tell her that Mito isn't his daughter.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Oh, I thought he wanted to hypnotize her to tell him to forget.
No, because Mito would still know, so he only hypnotizes himself.
I thought Mito got hypnotized too, though, didn't she?
I don't think so, because she asked him like what he was doing there.
Oh man, that's a huge thing then.
Yeah, that's edgy.
Ooh man.
I'm pretty sure that's because I mean that's what it says on Wikipedia, which I'm looking at. Because I don't think she asked him what he was doing there, and she goes out and she sees the chairs, and maybe she got hypnotized too. But he writes the letter, and he's the one that's shown being hypnotized, and not Mito.
Wow, that is crazy. I thought that it was that totally changed it. I don't know how I missed that, but that totally changed it.
I mean, that scene is obviously open to interpretation in a lot of ways, but that's what I got from it, is that he hypnotized himself to forget that he's their daughter.
Well, I was,
or that's his daughter.
I guess I was interpreting it as a slightly more PG, heartwarming ending of him wanting to forget that he had sex with her and wants her to be wants to forget that, you know, they had ever had that romantic relationship, and basically he wants to just carry on as a father-daughter now. I didn't get that. Though I will say I did think the ending where he's kind of has that pained smile on his face almost suggests that the hypnosis didn't work.
That's very much like, I think apparently the directors came out and said that the ending is open to all kinds of interpretation, but that's the idea I got too, is that maybe the hypnosis didn't work. But definitely, I don't think he had Mito hypnotized, so he just hypnotized himself.
I think I'm just going to choose to look at it that way, though, because I feel like that...
I think I like the other way better, honestly, because it's way edgier.
It's edgier, but I feel like it makes... I don't know, I still feel like the other way, Odesu is a somewhat sympathetic character still at the end, where I feel like the other way it makes him just even like, it is edgy, it's interesting, but I feel like it just makes him just a cretin kind of.
He is a creep. He even says he's a monster.
Yeah, that's true. Man, that's really interesting.
Because I mean, I feel like they didn't show her being hypnotized, and it seems like she doesn't seem like she's been hypnotized at the end.
That's true, man. That's really interesting. I guess you can take it in some different directions there, but
yeah, there's a lot of ways you can take that. I mean, that scene may not have even happened. He may have just died, but that's what I got from that scene.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look more into that, but that's what I got from that. I mean, the main question seems to be whether or not the hypnosis worked, and it doesn't appear to have worked, at least completely.
No, I didn't think the hypnosis worked, because I thought it shows him, you know, he has that weird quote unquote, one scene that's great is that hypnotism scene where it's his reflection in the mirror or in the window, and with the hypnotist saying, you know, take 30 paces away, and each pace you'll age a year. And that's basically representative of the monster and him dying. But then the monster is the one who has that crazy smile on his face. And at the end of the movie, that's the same face he still has. So I was under the impression that he did remember that he had sex with Midu, but I thought he was going to try to play it off as though, or he didn't really know what he was struggling with it still. And, you know, like, I want to have this father-daughter relationship, but I still remember what happened between us. But yeah, that's super crazy that I don't know where I got that Midu was hypnotized. For some reason, I was almost sure that she had been hypnotized. And I don't know if
yeah, I'm reading the more longer detailed synopsis on IMDb, and it just talks about Daesu hypnotizing himself.
I just don't know why he would. I mean, I guess he would hypnotize himself to make himself forget that she is his daughter, so he can just. But man,
yeah, it seems like obviously the alternative is to have them both hypnotized so they can just be father-daughter again. But it seems like he has himself hypnotized so that he doesn't know she's his daughter, and so they can just go back to what they were before.
Wow, what a mind blown.
This movie.
That movie. So yeah, that's it. That's Oldboy. Well, obviously, Dave, you loved it. It's your 10, and I will say this right off the bat. It's not a 10 for me, but I do love it, and I think the thing about me with this movie, I respect it more than I love it. I enjoy the movie quite a bit, but there's so many things that I like and respect about the movie, and I think my favorite thing about it is how it doesn't give you what you expect. It totally turns all these vengeance movies on their heads, because at every point where you think, oh, this is, a standard, this is what would happen in a normal revenge story, the movie basically goes in a totally opposite direction of that, and it does it organically in the story. I mean, the first time it happens is when Odesu is about to tunnel out of his imprisonment, and that's the time he gets released. It's just...
Yeah, that was interesting.
The movie basically never gives Odesu what he wants, and he's this character that's been through so much shit, and yet the movie refuses to give him his due. It always sticks back to that, you're a monster line. Like, it stays true to that throughout the whole movie. And, like, I'm a beast, but don't I deserve to live or whatever? And obviously it's the movie saying, yeah, you deserve to live, but you're always going to be a beast. Because then at the end of the movie, where you expect that he's going to get this sweet vengeance on Wu Jin, it makes another huge turn and sort of, it humanizes Wu Jin a bit. It turns the tide on Odesu, and it just muddies everything and makes it super complicated, and basically just guarantees that there's not going to be a nice, clean, audience-pleasing ending where, he stabs Wu Jin through the heart and just takes his vengeance. The movie refuses to do that and basically, kind of gives the finger to the audience and says, like, no, I'm not going to do that for you. And I love that about this movie.
Yeah, and very much like he, at the end, you think there's no way he's going to be on his knees begging for mercy from this guy, but he does end up on his knees begging for mercy.
Yeah, and it fights against what you want as a viewer too, because you want, after seeing him suffer in that room for 15 years, like, you are so on Odesu's side, you feel for him so much that he's been through so much, having to lose his wife and his daughter. There is nothing more you want than him to just take sweet vengeance on Wu Jin. And yet, based on what happens in the movie, it just totally ruins that. And it's impossible to look at it in that clean cut of a fashion. And I think it does. The fact that it's able to do that so naturally through the plot and how the movie is set up and the performances, I think it's a testament to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should just kind of just go down the line with, like, acting and stuff and see what we think of everything.
Yeah, I think the performances are all great. I think, who is the main guy? What's his name again?
It's Min Sik Choi.
Oh, okay, that is not what I thought his name was, but he's awesome.
Choi Min Sik, yeah, well, I was close.
Yeah, that's the same, basically. But yeah, he's phenomenal. And I think what's interesting, and I wish there was there's such a change in his character from who you see at the beginning and even in the flashbacks who you see to who he becomes, but it feels real. Like it's believable. It's not like just an absurd change. Like, you can imagine 15 years, in isolation, just completely changing somebody like that. And even his appearance just looks awesome. His acting the way it changes is awesome. His voice changes. I love it. I mean, I think he's great. And I also think Wu Jin's really good as kind of this unfeeling, just cold businessman type character who, has this tragic past as well. I think he's awesome too.
Yeah.
I thought...
Yeah, I really liked in the opening scene where Odesu is drunk, because I feel like that character is so different than anything else we see in the movie. And that was just like... I mean, he gives such a wide range of performances throughout this movie.
Yeah, he really does. And I mean, he plays that character really well. I mean, you believe this guy is this drunken, belligerent fool, and you can't imagine him turning into this, sort of stoic, this stoic just killer type. But he also kind of still maintains a sense of humor throughout the whole movie. He just, it's obviously more crazed, but he's still... You can still see that glimmer of that humorous guy that he used to be,
Yeah, because, I mean, in the one flashback, we see that he's she says he's really funny, and she asks her to, tell him a joke. So it's like, he has, this reputation for being a funny guy. And you're right. He basically goes crazy, but he still, is a funny guy.
Yeah, he's great. I found Midu to be a little annoying at times. I think
she was supposed to be, really obedient, maybe.
Yeah, I almost think that's more a fault of the writing and her, and just the character itself rather than maybe her performance. But yeah, she got on my nerves a little bit at times. But I still thought she did a good job. And yeah, the performances for me, they're all pretty spot on. I have no, and
yeah, I honestly Sue would not be adverse to him getting like an Oscar nomination for that performance, because of all the crap he had to do too.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
the live octopus, and just, I mean, he was very good. And I mean, it's not even in English, so we had to like draw on his facial expressions a lot, and I feel like they were just amazing.
They were amazing, yeah. And he's able to do so much with that character. There are times where I laughed at his character. There are times where I felt so terrible for him just on a deep level. There are times when I thought he was crazy. There are times when I disliked him and I thought he was a monster. There were times when he just played all of that. There were times when I thought he was a badass. Like, he just plays all those different emotions so well. And I compare it to a performance like, take, for example, DiCaprio in The Revenant. I actually think this was a substantially deeper performance than what Leo did in The Revenant, and Leo won the Oscar for that. So
yeah, I mean,
because you think about it, it's a similar type situation. Leo goes through, a traumatic event, and he's, becomes a different, he's just a broken man who has to go through all these endurance tests, eating things and surviving, and that's basically what Sue goes through in this movie, except on top of that, there's additional layers of him, of who he was before all of this happened, and he's a totally different character, and he plays that character super believably. His appearance, I can't get over how much his appearance like changes, but in a really...
Yeah, I know. Like, he goes from being like fat, and then his hair, I mean...
Yeah, and he goes through so many physical tests in this movie in terms of having to eat that octopus, like, and just the way he does it is just so believable in the moment, and all the physical things he has to go through in this movie. I would put this up against Leo's performance and actually call it better. I mean, I think this is...
Which is a very big endorsement.
It's a huge endorsement to me.
A giant.
Because I love Leo. Leo's my favorite besides Pacino. So I think Leo's amazing. But I think this is actually a deeper performance than that. And I think it's pretty sad that he didn't get did he get nominated like for anything? Like, did he get any?
I don't think he got any like recognition from like the Oscars. I think he won some awards from like smaller stuff.
I hope so, because yeah, I mean, that's a performance of a lifetime.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, that he created just an incredible character. We should see who won the Oscar that year.
I actually think I looked it up, and I don't think it was anybody as good as him.
Here, if you want to talk about the performances, Dave, I'm gonna look it up real quick. I'll see. It's 2003, right?
Yeah. Well, the movie, I guess, would be the 2004 Oscars.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, like we said, I mean, the big thing is like he spends the beginning of the film in the hotel room, and he has to do a lot of stuff in there where it's literally just him and a lot of voiceover narration. I mean, he was able to captivate the screen just by himself while he's in that hotel room. I mean, he's, trying to tunnel out. He's like, first he like is like really depressed, and then he decides he starts training. You see he's like getting angrier and like putting himself in shape.
Yeah.
And he's just...
Did
you look it up?
Yeah, I looked it up. It was Sean Penn from Mystic River, which...
Oh.
I mean, don't get me wrong, that's a good performance, but man, I would take this every day of the week
yeah,
over that.
I mean, I haven't seen that, but I know Sean Penn.
I've seen it, and he's very good in it, but this is just such a more... It's just, this performance it contains everything. I mean,
yeah, it really does. I mean, just like he does like a lot of his own stunts and stuff, like, when we get to the hallway scene, I mean, that's an unbelievably well done scene, and it took a lot of acting from him to do, and he did it.
Yeah, and it's one of the this movie is... I just wish there were more movies like this being made that are challenging and just kind of balls to the wall, and the actors are just giving their all, and it's just pushes the envelope. I feel like there aren't enough movies these days, especially when you look at like Oscar contenders that do that kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, Oscar
contenders are usually very safe films. Like, pointing out a film about to come out, The Post, I mean, that looks like one of the safest Oscar bait films I've ever seen.
It really does. I mean, you look at these movies, like, I don't even know. I can't even think of any off the top of my head, but, Theory of Everything, King's Speech, and it's like, it's not that they're bad movies, but man,
they're always the same.
And they're like
period pieces.
Exactly. And Oldboy, like, I have some issues with it, but it's such an interesting movie, and it approaches difficult topics, and it shows crazy stuff, and I just think that movies like this deserve more attention. But did it?
I mean, this movie has gotten a lot of recognition.
Yeah, it is.
And
Yeah, it does get a lot of recognition, especially in like film circles. Did this win like the best foreign film?
I don't think it won anything. Oh, it can. It came in second place to Fahrenheit 9/11, which is a joke.
That is a complete joke.
I mean, give me a break.
That is literally a joke.
I mean, like it's got like a lot of accolades, but it's all smaller stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, Cannes is a very big award, and it came in second. It should have won that year for sure.
All right. What else? I love the score too.
Oh yeah, I think it uses some classical music that's like, I'm assuming it's like, you know, not stuff they made up for the film, but the original score is really well done.
It's really
like the themes stick in my head.
Yeah, the themes all stick in my head. I love it basically builds like an operatic vibe. And that's the other thing I love about it is that it kind of feels like it ties in with like Greek tragedy.
The whole thing with like it being kind of based on Oedipus.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Yeah, I was reading that too, that Oedipus was like an inspiration for the character or whatever. Like, I think the way it ties that in is just amazing.
I mean, the music during the hallway scene makes the scene a lot better, I feel like.
Yeah, it definitely does. And that's the other more like kind of like beat style music that's in that part. It's really good. And then the score kind of builds in that operatic way when he's looking through the scrap, what's it called, the photo album at the end. Yeah. And it's like this operatic, incredibly dramatic moment where he realizes what's going on. It just feels like, you know, a Greek tragedy or something. And it's just the music just.
I also like the score when he's about to get his teeth pulled out and he like starts going crazy basically.
I don't know if I remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was just watching it earlier, but I feel like the music adds a lot to that right there.
Yeah. And and
then when he's getting thrown around by the bodyguard, that's another one.
Oh yeah, that's classic. So yeah, I think the music's amazing. What else do we have here? I think
the editing is one of the biggest ones.
The editing is great. Yeah, the way like it mixes these longer takes with really choppy, fast cuts so well. Like this movie is. The editing's, I hope it won for best editing for something because the editing's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has some of the best editing I've ever seen because the opening scene when he's in the police station is really different than the rest of the movie because it's basically nothing but jump cuts, which you don't see a lot in mainstream films because they're jarring. But then, you know, you also have all these scenes like the hallway scene, which is like a long continuous take, you know, one of the best film fight scenes ever. Apparently it took like 3 days to film.
Oh my God.
Like 17 takes.
I can't even imagine getting all of those actors on the same page throughout that whole fight scene. Like, it's crazy to think about. It's incredible.
Do we just want to get around to that fight scene? Because we still have some stuff to say about
Yeah,
that.
let's talk about, and we can just talk about the violence too. Like, that fight scene's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, what I really love about the fight scene is like basically all he has is a hammer. And he's up against a bunch of guys with like boards and stuff, so he should lose. But what I love is every time he hits a guy, it's like the guy is obviously like injured for the rest of the fight because the only reason he's able to win is because he's hitting people with a hammer and it hurts. So when they're taking swings at him later, they're like tired and injured. And it only takes a couple of minutes for the entire group, including Odesu, to become really tired out. Like they all have to stop and rest like near the end of the fight because they can't go on.
It's just one of the most innovative fight scenes ever. Like in a different movie, like a standard action movie or something, it would have been so stylized and so over the top, and it would have just showed him like, you know, destroying everybody. But this, like, it manages to not only be really engaging to watch, but you kind of believe that he actually beat all those guys, and
it's portrayed in a way I believe could happen.
Yeah.
You know, like when he gets knocked on the ground, I really like he's like starts smashing their feet with a hammer, and that's the only way he's able to get back up.
Yeah, and the way like that some of the characters are like limping to try to get to him, and everybody's getting tired, and at some point they realize, you know, hey, he has a hammer, like I don't want any piece of that. Like it just
like they're like afraid to get close to him.
Yeah, it just makes it so believable, and the way it's filmed is just. It's unreal. I mean, it's so good.
Yeah, and the martial arts are really good too. I mean, you know, he's like a really good, like, you know, stylistic martial artist, but he's also like, you know, it's more of a real boxing thing than like, you know, like Jason Bourne where he's like ripping people's arms out.
Yeah, exactly. Because not only does it establish why he's good at fighting, but it also, he's not infallible. He's not perfect. He misses punches. He gets hit and he gets hurt himself. But you believe that this character, because he has so much training, and because he's so disciplined in terms of fighting.
Yeah, and he also has a lot of pent-up rage that he's just like unloading.
Yeah, combined with the pent-up rage, you believe that he actually beats all those guys. And I honestly think it might be the best fight scene ever. I don't know if I.
Yeah, I mean, I would, and I mean, I would put it up against literally any fight scene in history. And I mean, it's, if you look up best fight scenes, this is probably going to be on all of the lists you can ever find.
Yeah, I can't think of any scene better in the movie or in any movie.
And I mean, I even really love the scene where he fights the street toughs, even though it's really short. I wish it was longer, but I thought that was a really fun
That's a great scene
and
too. And plus, at that point in the movie, you're so curious to see, like, okay, how is he going to apply all that training he had in the room? How's he going to apply that in real life? And it looks so believable. And he's using a lot of the same moves that he was using on that wall painting in the room.
Yeah. I mean, he most of his fighting is just like more like regular boxing. It's just that he's really good.
He's just really good, and he's had 10 years to hone his skills. So, oh man, the fighting, and plus one thing I like about the violence in general in the movie is it all feels justified. Like it feels like it all ties in. Like it makes sense why all the violence in the movie happens. Even the scenes where there's some nasty moments in the movie in terms of like grotesque things happening. And all those moments feel like they're not there for just shock value. They are shocking, but it doesn't feel like the director was like, okay, we just got to throw something crazy in there because this is an art house movie. Everything he does makes sense. Like when he eats that octopus, it makes sense why he's eating it. He's just been released and he's, feels like he feels dead on the inside and he's eating something that's living. Like it ties in. When he, what else? When he cuts his tongue out, obviously there's...
Yeah. And then when he rips the guy's teeth out, he's like, I'm going to take a tooth for every year you let me. And I mean, that dude deserved to have his teeth ripped out for what he's doing.
He really did. So all this intense violence, I feel like in a lesser movie, especially an art house movie, it would just be there and be like, oh, like check out this grisly violence. But in this movie, it manages to also make sense in the context of the movie, which I think is just even more credit to it.
There also isn't a ton of fighting, which I wish there was more because the fights are so good in it. But I mean, really, like most of the movie is like him trying to figure out what happened or something. It's not like there's really only like the two big fights and then the fight with the bodyguard at the end, which is like, that's all almost off screen.
Yeah.
It's not gratuitous at all.
No, it's not gratuitous at all. I actually thought I remember this movie being rougher to watch than it is. And I don't know what it is, but as I'm getting older, it's I don't know if it's that I'm getting more squeamish. But it's not even necessarily squeamish, but I feel like I'm anticipating like gross scenes more than I used. Like I used to just not care and I would throw on a movie. Now I'm weirdly, it makes me anxious, but I can handle it. Like nothing in this movie really even made me. I could handle everything in the movie, but I was like building it up because I remembered the tongue cutting out scene, and I remembered there was other stuff in the movie, and it was like. I was like just sitting there like, oh, when's this going to happen? And then it happened. And I was like, okay, I can handle that. But that's definitely something that's like weighing on me more than it used to.
It's funny because in the movie, they kind of like address that where when he gets captured and Mr. Park is going to take his teeth out and he doesn't do it the first time. And he's like, your imagination is what makes it bad.
Yeah, that scene.
So it's like you're imagining it's going to be bad.
That scene is so good. So do we want to do like what our favorite scenes are? And then I'll get into some things that I had problems with. So
yeah, we can do that.
So obviously the fight scene, I think for both of us, probably my second favorite scene is where the hypnotism scene where he's like, because I think that is filmed so cool. The camera is literally like there's this really sort of ghostly reflection of him in Woo Jin's window, like his penthouse floor, and you see also his profile standing there looking, but you don't see his face. And it basically just films the whole hypnotism scene through the perspective of him in the window. And I think that is just such a cool scene, not only in terms of the dialogue and stuff, but the way it's filmed. There's so many different camera angles in this movie, too, that I think are interesting.
Oh, the camera work. I would say the cinematography is easily 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree there.
It's framed well.
Yeah, it never feels boring. It like the camera's always doing something interesting and framing things, but it doesn't feel like gratuitous or it doesn't feel like it's trying too hard. It just feels really natural. Yeah, the cinematography is incredible. What are my other favorite scenes? This movie is like so many scenes stand out to me. Obviously, I like the octopus eating scene. I think that's really interesting. And I think some of my favorite scenes are when he's in the room. I think that is just so interesting. And one of my nitpicks about the movie, I wish that had gone on a little longer. Like I wish some of the other stuff had been a little bit more condensed, like in the middle, like with the plot, like figuring out the plot and stuff. And I wish that he had been in that room a little longer because I found everything in that room to just be engrossing. And I just loved the element of him just, watching TV and just slowly changing as a person. And I kind of wish that had been a little slower. Like I wish that had been maybe like 30 minutes, 40 minutes instead of like 15 or 20.
Yeah, we didn't talk much about the time he spends in the room, but it's like big thing is he talks about how the only thing in his life is the television. So I think the major theme in this film is about like loneliness and isolation. It's like he has to use the TV literally for everything to like teach him about life, and that's like the only thing that keeps him from killing. Oh, he tries to kill himself multiple times.
Yeah, and like
the TV keeps him alive.
It does, and it's like sexually, he's like watching whatever, like the fitness channel and getting off. Like it's that's definitely a theme in this is loneliness and isolation. I think like I just loved watching that. I loved watching him in the room, just kind of going through his daily routine. I liked them cutting his hair. I liked him, practicing martial arts and just watch.
Yeah, that was great.
Just flip
when he's punching the wall.
Yeah, flipping through the channels. I loved him digging out. Like all of that stuff was so good that I wish that had gone on a bit longer because, like, I was like zoned into this movie during those parts. And the only like I hate to say zone out because I like everything in it, but I would say the middle of the movie I kind of zone out at times. It's not that it's bad, it's always done interestingly, but it's so much plot, it's so much information being figured out, mixed with Midu, who I at times found annoying, that there were times when my mind wandered a little bit during the middle section. So if I have a complaint, it's that I wish the middle had been tightened up a little bit and maybe some time added, either at the very beginning where you see him a little more as his previous self, or add a little more time with him in the room. And I think if that had happened, this probably would have been a 10 for me too. But
yeah, I think that the whole internet cafe thing, that actually like loses me a little bit every time, just because I don't want to say it's a little confusing.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea who she was like talking to. I guess that was Wu Jen she was talking to on the computer.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing with me is there are times this movie's a little confusing. And I mean,
probably because it's not named.
Yeah, that too. It's a puzzle box movie. I think it's the names as well. The names are hard to follow. And I think at times there are just some jumps in terms of him figuring things out that I'm like, wait a second, like how did he figure that out? And I'm sure there's an answer for it if I go back and watch it, but there are times it's just the plot is a little bit convoluted for me. Like when you break it down into the broadest elements, it all makes sense, but in terms of him figuring it out throughout the middle portion of the movie, there were times I feel like that could have been tightened a bit, but that's all I really got in terms of negatives. Other than that,
so they're actually like I already talked about the opening scene before, but I just want to get back into that again as like one of my favorite scenes.
Oh yeah,
just because I feel like that scene is like I don't know.
Did you said the opening scene?
Yeah, when he's in the police station. Not the first of all, the scene where he's holding the dude off the rooftop is really interesting because of the way they kind of flip it on the viewer.
Yeah, that's a great opening.
Because you think he's like he's threatening this guy, but it turns out he actually is saving him, which I can't think of a movie that really has done that.
No.
But just in the police station, it's like the acting is amazing, and just the way it's edited, I don't know, the way it's shot.
Yeah, even the way it's lit is just different. It feels like a different movie. It feels like you're watching a noir or something.
Yeah.
Like the performances are different. The way it's filmed is different. It's like really rainy with dark lighting and everything's, it feels like you're watching this noir movie. And that's one thing. Other thing that's so impressive about this movie is the tonal shifts that happen. It just, like this movie tonally is just, it shifts, but it never loses you, or it never feels like it's unwarranted. And yeah, I love the beginning. I think it's so cool. And again, I just can't praise his performance enough because it even looks like a totally different character that's there in the police station.
I mean, really, like the first guy in the police station, you don't think is the same guy.
No, like it actually, I knew it was him, but it took me a second when he was captured. I was like, wait, that's him, right? Like, because I haven't seen this movie in a while, so when he's in the police station, I'm like, that is the guy, or the main guy, right? And I really had to think about it because I couldn't remember what his name was from my prior viewing of it. So I was like, oh, Desu, that's the main guy, right? And that, like I didn't remember because especially since he was so different than. Because I obviously more remembered his older version going into it.
All right,
Yeah,
so,
man, it's a great movie.
yeah. Do we have any final thoughts? Because I think we've covered everything, or we haven't covered everything, but we've covered.
Yeah,
a lot.
we've covered a lot. It's a classic. I think it deserves all the accolades it gets and more. It's a vengeance movie that's not about vengeance. They even throw in all kinds of cool references like Count of Monte Cristo, and this movie sets you up so well for what you think is coming, and everybody in the director knows what you think is coming, and he just flips it on its head. And I think it's just a really great take on a vengeance movie, and I think it's just everything about it is competent and really well made. I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. So I liked it.
8.5?
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. It loses me a bit in the middle. And the thing about this movie for me is I have so much respect for it, but it's not, I don't really connect with this movie on like a personal level. This is a movie for me that I'm in awe of in terms of all the technical elements and everything that goes into it. But it's not a movie that this isn't a movie I would throw on a bunch of times and watch over and over again. It's a movie that I would watch every once in a while and just be like, damn, that is some impressive filmmaking. But I enjoy it. But yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, you have those movies that you...
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like, you like it, but you just can't watch it that much.
No, like, this isn't a movie I can watch over and over again. I really respect it, and I think it's got some really impressive things going on, but it's just not one of my personal favorites. So, all right, still a great movie, though.
Yeah. Man, also, just going back to the ending again, that makes me like the movie a lot more. How edgy that ending is.
I'm still processing that because I
mean, that is so messed up. If that's the way it's played out, I feel like that is just unbelievably messed up, and I love it.
It really is. I honestly don't really have much else to say about it right now because I just need to process it. Like I came into this podcast with how I thought it ended, and basically what you said just totally flips that on its head, and it just makes me reassess kind of the whole movie, and it makes me reassess the character. But I think that's another great thing about the movie is I think you can interpret that ending in different ways. And
yeah, I mean it's very obviously set up to be interpreted and not just played out like this is what happened.
Yeah, and nothing in this movie gets tied up with a neat bow. That's pretty much what this is saying. Especially not the ending. The ending probably the most of all. So. Actually, yeah. What do you have any final things to say? This is your.
I mean, obviously, I said the editing is some of the best I've ever seen. One of the best performances, pretty much ever. The more I think about it, the fight choreography, the framing, the camera movement, everything is just the score. It's all perfect for me.
So where would that? I know we're gonna do an episode in the future where we do like a top 100 list or something like that. But would this be real way up there? Are we talking?
This would probably be are we doing top 100 personal favorites?
Yeah. Or? Where would this rank?
This would probably be my top 10.
It'd be in your top 10? Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because I actually think I would have some movies I wouldn't rate a top 10 above this, but I would still call this a top 10. I just like those movies better.
Yeah, that's fair. So, all right. Well, I guess it's time to move on to La La Land, which is...
Yeah, just before we move on, though, how much money would you need to watch this movie with your girlfriend's parents?
That is an amazing question. Ooh.
Or your parents.
My parents, I would do it for not that much. I mean, I'd probably do it for $50 or something because I've shown one thing I'm just learning now. Especially as my taste in movies has changed over the years. Obviously, I like a lot more weird stuff than I used to when I was in high school and things like that. And I'm just kind of learning, and part of it is also I think almost like a self-pride thing where I like to kind of and also I just like messing with my parents. Sometimes I'll throw something on for them that I think is going to be really weird, if I haven't seen it, and I'll just we'll watch it out. I went to see that movie The Lobster with my parents in theaters, and I actually wasn't crazy about it, but I thought it was pretty good. But my parents were just appalled. They were like, "What kind of movie did you take us to? What is this?" And occasionally I'll throw on a movie like Oldboy or something like that to my parents
Just to show that you like weird
Just
stuff.
to show I like weird stuff, and partly to get a rise out of them, and partly because sometimes I do think, oh, well, maybe they'll like this, and I'm halfway through, I'm always like, why in the world would I think they would like this? Like, what are you doing? So, I wouldn't need too much from my parents, but, my girl, Jessa's parents, I don't know. It would be...
Man, looking back, that sex scene is so awkward in this movie, and I guess that's the whole point.
It's really awkward.
It's hard to get through.
It's really hard, and it kind of, like, I think that's one other thing that I don't know how I feel about it, is it felt, at times, his relationship to her felt kind of like rape. Like,
Well, they were hypnotized to beating her.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's why it's forced. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, so it makes sense, but it's hard to get through. I don't know how much money. Maybe... I mean, it would probably take at least like 1,000, at least, because especially since I've never sat down and watched a movie with them. So if this were to be the first movie I watch with them, man, I feel like it would.
There's a lot of people I want to sit down and watch this movie with just to see their reactions.
I feel like it would kind of change our relationship. It would take at least 1,000. But you know who I'd be interested to watch this movie with is Adam's parents.
Oh man, that'd be pretty
I wonder,
good.
because they're more cinephiles than most parents are, so I wonder how they would take it.
I'm sure that they would be shocked at the ending.
I think they would too. I feel like,
that just reminded me of all the foreshadowing. We didn't even talk about all the amount of foreshadowing this movie has. We don't need to now, but there is a ton of foreshadowing.
Yeah, there is a lot of foreshadowing.
And it's like way better the second time because you're like, ooh, didn't notice that.
Yeah, and that's the best thing about this. This is a movie you could just talk about almost endlessly. There's so many things going on. It's just, yeah, it's great. Alrighty, should we move on to something completely different?
Yeah, a little more lighthearted.
Just a little bit more lighthearted in La La Land, 2016, directed by Damien Chazelle. So this one is starring the Gaz and Emma Stone. I guess we want to go into this thing, Dave?
Yeah, actually, it's been a while since I've seen this, but my plot synopsis might not be super intricate, but I remember basically.
And this is a more straightforward movie, at least maybe until the ending, and I can fill in any gaps.
Yeah. Also, for some reason, I thought this movie was not set in present day. I guess the whole point is it's a throwback to Hollywood's heyday, but I was like, when I saw the opening scene, I was like, I could have sworn this movie was not set in the present, but...
Yeah, it definitely is.
I don't know why I thought that.
It definitely is.
Yeah, the opening sequence, it just shows like all this like gridlock on like an LA freeway, and then like this one woman just gets out of her car and they all break into this big musical number. It's called Another Day in the Sun. I think that's the main theme of the movie, isn't it?
Yeah, I
feel like I hear that theme a lot.
It's similar to another theme in the movie. It's not actually, no, it's pretty much its own thing, but there's another theme in the movie that's similar to it that you hear in like the second scene. But
yeah, so and then after the musical number's done, they all get back in their cars and it's like it never happened, which I thought was funny. Yeah. And then we see Emma Stone's character, whose name is, what is it, Mia?
Yeah, it's Mia.
She's sitting in a car and she's on the phone, like that she just got a phone call that somebody was in an accident or something. And then it actually turns out she's like practicing for an audition. And then Ryan Gosling's character, Sebastian, is behind her, and he gets really mad, starts honking at her, and then passes her and basically gives her a death stare as he's driving by. We also see him, he's keeps listening. Of course, he's got a tape player in his car because he's very pretentious. Or he's poor, too.
He's poor.
And he's like, keeps repeating this jazz song that he's trying to like master on piano. So basically, Mia is an aspiring actress, and Sebastian is a very talented, basically a virtuoso pianist who loves jazz. Let me see here. Oh, yeah. So the next scene, we find out Mia works at a coffee shop on, what is it, like one of the movie lots, like Warner Brothers lots or something.
Yeah, it's Warner Brothers.
And she has a bad day at work. She gets coffee spilled on her, and she has to go to an audition, and then it's the audition for the thing she was practicing earlier, and like before she can even finish, they basically cut her off and tell her to go fuck herself.
Yeah,
basically.
Pretty much. And it's so many words.
Yeah, so then she goes back to her apartment, and I think don't they have a little musical number there?
Yeah, there's a little musical number where they're like going to this Hollywood soiree.
Yeah, and then they drag her out to go to this party, and then they have like, this really swanky Hollywood party, and then her car got towed, so while she's walking home, Yeah, she's walking home is when she sees Sebastian playing at the restaurant.
Yeah,
right?
and then it cuts to...
Or is that later?
No, that happens on the way home, and then it cuts to his story. Basically, what's been happening.
Yeah. So basically, he does it show his scene when he's in his apartment now?
Yeah. So it follows him from when their interaction on the freeway. It follows what he's been doing since then. So he...
Oh yeah. So he goes back to his apartment, and it turns out his sister is there, and she tells him about like a rug that Miles Davis pissed on once or something.
Yeah, it's a stool too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the stool is like somebody sat on, right? Some famous.
Yeah,
musician.
like Hoagie somebody, I can't remember.
So he goes in there and like he's basically really poor, and his parents think he's a failure in life, I guess, and he starts practicing on his piano, and then we see he has a job playing at a bar or something.
Yeah.
And he goes there, and the owner's like, just play Christmas music, don't play that goofy weird jazz crap. So he's playing like the stupid, he has a little tip jar, nobody's tipping him, he's playing the stupid Christmas music, and then it kind of like cuts to where it's like just him, and he starts going into this really like intricate, this is actually a problem I had with the movie I get into later, this like really incredible jazz song, and then he plays it, and then when he's done, the owner's like, you're fired for doing that. And he argues with the owner, and on the way out, Mia came in and saw him and tried to compliment him, and he basically told her to go fuck herself.
Pretty much.
Yeah, he blows
again
her off.
In so many words.
So then, and also, what does it open in, spring or summer?
I think it actually opens in winter.
Oh, is it winter? Yeah, because he's like, it's
Yeah.
Christmas. And then it skips to spring, I think, because it goes through seasons. I don't really know the point, but and then Mia meets Sebastian again. He's at a party playing in a 1980s cover band, and they're playing like what is
they're
it?
playing what they're playing, I can't what's that song that's like
what is that song called? Anyway, they're playing that song. You
guys know what that is.
Take on Me.
Take on Me. That's what it is.
Yeah. And then they're like, do you want any requests? And he's playing like a freaking keytar too. So he's obviously like very unhappy.
Yeah.
So then she requests I Ran So Far Away, which he gets really annoyed by. And then after that, he's basically like, that's not a song a serious musician would ever play. So then they start kind of hitting it off. And when they leave, they walk home together, and they have like a little musical number where they basically like, or they don't walk home, they walk to their cars. They have a little musical number where they explain how they like each other, but they also don't like each other.
They're being coy.
Yeah, they're playing coy. There's also some pretty good gags, which I don't know if I should get to now or later, because I thought some of the jokes were out of place, but really
yeah,
funny.
we'll get to those later, I guess.
So then Sebastian shows up at her work, and she shows him around the lot, and then he explains to her that he's like big into jazz, and she's like, I don't like jazz, and he like almost is about to freaking like dump her on the spot because she doesn't like jazz.
What do you mean you don't like jazz?
You just haven't heard the right kind of jazz. So then he takes her to a jazz club. He explains how he wants to save jazz because it's dying out, and then and then also he wants to own his own club. And then I think they have another song, and then he invites her to see Rebel Without a Cause with her. Or with him. So then after that, it turns out Mia actually has a boyfriend, so she's kind of like didn't see that coming, actually. So
spoiler alert, though, he's a douche.
Yeah, he's a douche, and he's only in one scene and then never seen again. So he drops in, and then the day she's supposed to go see Rebel Without a Cause, they actually have to go on a date, and she just randomly gets up on the date and leaves and goes to watch Rebel Without a Cause with Sebastian. So they go to watch it, and then the freaking projector breaks while they're watching it. So then they go to it's called the Griffith Observatory, I guess. I guess that's a pretty famous place in LA.
It's in the hills or whatever.
Yeah, he goes there, and they have another romantic moment. And at this point, they're basically in love. So then we see Mia doing a bunch more auditions. She does like all these stupid ones, and she never gets any roles. And then he basically convinces her to write a one-woman play about one of her experiences. And so then they are like in a relationship, and one day they're together at the apartment, and he hears her talking to her mother, and she's like explaining how he doesn't really have any success right now, but he's trying, and he thinks that he should try and get something more steady. So he joins like this really shitty jazz band I thought this guy, that was John Legend, right? He joins his band. I thought that their music was terrible. I don't know if it was supposed to be or what.
I didn't think it was terrible. I think it was supposed to be, obviously more, not the kind of stuff that he wants to be playing.
I thought that was the worst song in the movie by far, actually. The one at the concert.
I'm not. I'm kind of lukewarm about the song itself, but I like that scene.
Yeah, I thought that was a good scene because it kept getting more ridiculous, and you could tell that he was not having a good time. He had that stupid. He has
like a
synth.
Yeah,
solo.
And he had like that. What kind of piano is that, Dave? Like a electronic piano or something?
Oh, just like a keyboard or a synthesizer. Mm-hmm. I think it was a synth.
Okay.
Either way. Yeah, she goes to see him at a concert. She's happy that he joined the band, but she thinks it's going to be a short-term thing. And then he signs a contract to be, in the band for a long time, and he goes on tour. So he goes on tour, and he's like never at home, and she keeps writing her play. And then he comes home randomly one night, and they get into a big fight because she thinks that he gave up on his dreams, and he says he did it for her. So then they basically are obviously on thin ice there. And then this is a scene I'm gonna have to ask you about. He has a photo shoot with his band the night of the play, and for some reason he says yes to the photo shoot, and it ends up missing her play, which bombs because nobody goes to see it. And then while she's in the intermission, she hears people talking trash about it. So then after that, he goes and he apologizes, but she breaks up with him, and she goes back home to Boulder City, Nevada.
Yep.
That's what it is. And there's actually a pretty funny scene where he gets a phone call because there's a casting director that saw the play and actually really liked it and is looking for it. And he's like, she's not here. And the casting director's like, are you going to talk to her? He's like, no. He's like, he's trying to hang up. And then, so then he drives out to Boulder City and convinces her to go to the audition, which he has this thing where he honks his horn and just stands outside until she acknowledges him, which is pretty funny. So he convinces her, they drive back, she does the audition, and then they tell her to tell a story, and I think she has another musical number there.
Yeah.
And then they don't find out whether or not the audition is a success right away. They just basically explain no matter what happens, they'll love each other. And then it skips 5 years, and Mia is married to another dude. Another thing I got to ask you about. Well,
okay.
Not ask you about, just complain about.
Yeah, no problem.
And she goes out. She has a daughter. She's living in a big house in Hollywood. And then we see she has a poster on a wall. She's obviously pretty famous now. And they just randomly decide to walk into some bar, which just happens to be Sebastian's Jazz Bar, which he now owns. And they go in and watch him play, and then he starts playing their song from earlier, and then it shows this long sequence of all these things that would have happened if they had stayed together.
Yep.
And then turns out that was all a lie. And then Mia smiles at Sebastian and leaves, and that's the end of the film.
Oh man. Well, Dave, I gotta say, I'm very curious because you haven't given me anything in terms of reaction to this movie, and I gotta say, watching it, I couldn't decide whether I thought you would like this or not. So, what are your general thoughts?
Well, first of all, this didn't factor in my decision very much at all. I really hate musicals, but honestly, that didn't really impact my my opinion of the film. My biggest problems. Oh yeah, I was going to ask you why the heck would he agree to that photo shoot? Was he just angry or what? Because he knew.
I think it was he was contractually obligated to. I don't think it. I know the scene kind of plays it almost as.
Because the scene plays it like he could just say no.
But I don't think he can say no to that, or at least I don't think he can without potentially breaching his contract, because John Legend is kind of you're good for that, right?
Yeah, but but the way John Legend plays, he's like, yeah, is that all right? Because he's almost if that's not all right, we can reschedule it. That's the impression I got from his tone.
I can get that, and
he doesn't even try to.
I definitely got that the first time I watched it, and watching it subsequent times, it does play a little more like it's not necessarily a choice. Or though I think it's kind of mixed with the fact that Ryan Gosling is, he's kind of irresponsible as a character, and I think he probably feels like maybe I can do both. I
almost got the impression he was a little angry at Mia, and he was like,
Yeah, well...
That's probably my biggest problem with the movie I'll get into, is I didn't buy the relationship that much.
Oh, okay. So, we'll get into that. But so what
Yeah.
did you think overall? Like, did you?
I mean, I liked it. I'll tell you the things I really liked. The cinematography was excellent. Like the colors
Agreed,
were
yeah.
awesome. Like I really liked Mia's apartment.
Yeah, I did too. Her,
The camera movement was amazing.
yeah. The cinematography to me is just incredible. I mean, even the musical numbers, like there are. We'll get into all that too, but like that scene where he's walking on the pier and just the wide angle shot there is incredible, and the observatory scenes I think are just amazing. This movie speaks to me in terms of the cinematography and the
cinematography I would agree was absolutely incredible.
And I think
Like, some
the
of
lighting
best.
complements it so well, just with those soft kind of pastel neon colors, and then it cuts to like really bright LA type scenes, and I just think the cinematography and lighting are spot on.
Yeah, I actually really like. There's a scene where they're both standing like left and right, and it's like there's a blue light and a pink light.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that was really cool.
I love that scene too.
I mean, the camera movement when they're doing the musical numbers is really good.
Yeah, it's really good. That opening scene is just like a masterwork on camera movement. The way it.
Yeah, I was really into that opening scene, surprisingly.
Yeah, that's a scene too where I was wondering, like, man, I can't tell if Dave's going to be hating this or not, because I watched it again. I've seen it probably like maybe 5 or 6 times now, and I was like, I don't. Dave is either going to be like okay with this, or he's going to be like loathing it.
I mean, I can tell you, like, when I first turned this movie on, I had to pause it through that opening scene. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this, because I fucking hate musicals. Like, I hate them.
Yeah,
This is probably the only musical I don't hate.
And one of the things I guess we can get into that I think is a topic of conversation. I guess I would call it a musical, but I don't feel like the music in it, and especially the musical numbers, are as essential to the story as a lot of those old classic ones are. I feel like the music is almost more, and the musical element is almost more complementary to everything else.
See, I don't know if I would agree with that, actually.
I don't know. That's how I see it, because if you think about it, there's only the major musical numbers are the first one, which really it doesn't have a whole lot to do with the rest of the movie. I think it mostly just establishes what kind of world we're in. It's obviously a world where, that's filled with possibilities, and people are, and I think it kind of establishes the theme of combating cynicism. I think that's one of the things about this movie. This is not a cynical movie, really, in any way.
Oh yeah, this is a very uplifting film,
it is.
Like they make it.
And I like that about it, because you don't see that many movies like that these days, and it really, I feel like the movie owns it. I feel like it says, you know what, this isn't cynical, but we're not going to try to subvert it. Like, it's just not a cynical movie. Like, if you're going to be cynical about it, sorry, it probably isn't going to be for you. But I feel like everybody involved is so committed to that to me, it just really works. And but I don't feel like, other than that opening number, there's the scene of them together where they're dancing on the after the big Hollywood party, which I mean is definitely a musical number that kind of is reminiscent of old ones. But other than that, I mean, there's a couple interludes where Gosling is singing to himself, but I feel like those play as more character moments. And then you have her audition song at the end, which is honestly more, I feel like, of a story rather than necessarily like a quote-unquote musical number. I just don't feel like the musical elements of this movie are necessarily as essential as other, especially these old-time Hollywood classics that it's so often compared to. And I know I'm sure people disagree with me on that, but I just never look at this movie and think like, oh, this is a musical first and foremost. That's the most important thing. I always kind of look at it as a complementary part of the movie.
Well, I think that actually one thing I liked, and something that does validate your point, even though I disagree somewhat, is that there's lots of scenes where there's not music playing. I mean, there's lots of dialogue and normal scenes, and it's like the songs, in most musicals the songs just dominate the movie, and in this one they do not dominate the film at all. They're in there, but there's also a lot of other film without the music in it at all, and that's why, I would agree with you that they're not essential, and it's still a movie on its own.
Yeah.
Without being overwhelmed by the musical.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I like this a lot better than a lot of those old Hollywood classics, is because I feel like those movies are dependent on the music. And I'm not actually a huge musical guy myself. I think I probably like them more than you, but they're not my favorite by any means, though this movie is one of my favorites of all time. And I feel like part of the reason it is that is because I don't feel like it is dependent on the musical aspect of it. And actually, can we pause for a sec? I gotta piss again.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the musical aspect of it is definitely there, but I just don't feel like it, is like the defining aspect of the movie. And also, I like all the music that's in it. Like, there's not a song that I don't like. I think all the music works, and I even like the musical numbers, which I'm not always crazy about. Like, and I think it's because some of them aren't. Sometimes I'm not a fan of the super showy, musical numbers in movies, because I feel like it's like, okay, am I just watching like something on Broadway, which I like, but it just feels like a different thing to me. And other than that opening number, it feels like all the rest of the songs pretty much are more personal and relate to the characters, and just work for me that much more. And I feel like that opening number, if there was going to be one that's this big show-stopping number, I feel like that's the one that needs to be big, because it kind of just establishes the world, and I feel like it works.
I mean, I definitely liked all the music too. Going back to that point, I was kind of, except for the song in the concert song, I thought that sucked.
Yeah, except for the John Legend song. Yeah, I can't tell. I mean, I think the movie was probably trying to do two things. I think they were trying to make it a good song, but I think they were also trying to make it a song that also clearly established that this is not the kind of music that Ryan Gosling's character likes or wants to be doing. So I actually didn't mind it. It was probably my least favorite song in the movie, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was okay, but sounds like you were not a fan.
I mean, and I, like you said, I think they were trying to make it a good song, just a song that Sebastian would dislike, and I just... I hated it probably more than he did. I was like, oh, God.
Like, let's get this over with.
Pretty much.
But see, I feel like that's another good example. Like, but you like that. You were cool with that scene.
Yeah, I was.
And I feel like their character moments and the things that were going on in the story always kind of trump whatever musical element is happening at the time. And I think that's another reason why I like it so much. And I think that's another reason why I don't necessarily... I see some of the throwback elements to old Hollywood musicals, but I don't feel like this is one of those just in modern times. I feel like there's a lot of differences there in a lot of different ways. And I mean, there are throwbacks, like when it does CinemaScope and then the fisheye lens or whatever circling in and out, but it just doesn't feel like that's a critical connection.
See, I actually think my big problem was I think that they use those musical numbers as like the only way to develop me and Sebastian's relationship, and I really didn't like that, because I did not buy the relationship very much, and I feel like you were supposed to buy it because they did those musical numbers together, because that was
you were definitely supposed to buy it, and I don't know, I buy it 1,000%. I'm trying to and I mean, yeah, if you don't buy that relationship, that's definitely a blow to the movie. I mean, you're supposed to really feel that those characters are soulmates, and I don't know, I mean, watching it this latest time, there wasn't quite as much there between them as I remembered from previous viewings, but it still really works for me, because I feel like everything that was there was still really good, and I feel like I just love both those actors so much. I mean, obviously, especially Gosling, but I just feel like their chemistry is so real that I just bought everything that happened between them, but guess not the case for you.
So, like, my big thing was, like, first of all, it didn't seem like they did a whole lot to show that they were in love with each other. Like, there was really the only romantic things they did were the musical numbers, like when they went to the observatory, when they went to go see the movie together, and then the dinner, which ended up exploding in their faces. It seemed like most of the movie, and I get that the movie was about them pursuing their dreams, was about their dreams and not about each other. And like, I just felt like there was very little there of them actually acting like they were in love, and then it was pretty much just a couple of musical numbers. That was it. Like, other than that, I really didn't feel like they were in love with each other, especially, and I think that was all on Ryan Gosling's character more than me, is like, I feel like I don't know. I feel like he was just, first of all, he was a dick. He was really pretentious and full of himself. And I also feel like he wasn't super in love with her.
that's why I feel like it worked for me on multiple different levels, because I'm trying to think of the best way to frame this. Because I feel like the relationship worked on multiple levels. Number one, I feel like you're just supposed to get it in the chemistry. Like, even in that first scene where they're on the freeway and he gives her the finger, for some reason, like, it just, even that little moment, despite the fact that they were being mean to each other, it just felt like, I don't know, I kind of felt a spark there, even in that moment. And then when they keep meeting, there's the fate element that comes into it. Like, these characters keep meeting, is there something more going on here? And and they're even a little meta about it, because Ryan Gosling's character says when they're on like their third meeting or whatever, he's like, maybe it means something. She's like, no, probably not. But I think they really do believe it means something. I think that's like what their relationship is, and how they build their chemistry is by being coy with each other, and just basically by being charming and, kind of slyly putting the other down, even though they, what they're saying betrays the opposite, that they feel the opposite. And it just, I feel like they just have chemistry together. And even though there aren't necessarily a lot of scenes early on where they're really, though there is that scene where they're on the movie lot and they have that long extended scene of them kind of talking about their dreams and stuff like that. I feel like that kind of builds their relationship a bit. And that's the other element of their relationship, I think, is the fact that, and it's one of the themes of the movie, is just addressing dreamers and dreaming in general. I feel like those two characters are both prime examples of a classic dreamer who's trying to pursue a career in the arts or, something like that. And just that romantic angle of it. And I feel like both of those characters really see that in the other pretty much from the first meeting. I think when she walks into that bar and sees him playing that song, and I think she kind of gets that he's probably being let go, I think she connects with him in that moment and realizes, I think she kind of sees a kindred spirit there. And then obviously he kind of is a douche to her and just brushes her off, but then they address that in the next scene. I love the scene where they're at the party and she requests Iran. I think that's just a really good scene. So I don't know. I guess I just bought all of the chemistry that they had, and I thought it developed it enough that I was all in on their relationship. And maybe it was just me relating to it personally too. And I think that's another element. I don't know if we can get into it now or later, but I just relate to this movie in a lot of ways. Like, it feels like this movie is just one of those movies that just speaks to me on a really personal level. And I think that definitely colors how I see it too.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about, like, first of all, I think a lot of the chemistry was one-sided. I feel like Mia came off as being a lot more in love than Sebastian did. Like, Sebastian really seemed like he was, I don't want to say cold, but it just didn't seem like he cared about her nearly that much, especially later on. And I mean, I also feel like he was right that when they get in that argument at dinner and he was like, she's like, oh, you abandoned your dreams. Like, that's a pretty messed up thing to say. Like, he joined a band and they're going on tour. Like, wouldn't say he abandoned his dream. I feel like that she was definitely in the wrong at that dinner, but
yeah, that's true. But I feel like that was like a realistic fight for those characters to be having. And it's kind of, I think it was one of those moments where, we've all been in a situation where we say something to someone that, we don't mean, or it's, it's not right in the moment, but, we're pissed off or we're frustrated. And I think at that point in time, those characters were obviously in love, but just were having a really hard time making it work because they're both pursuing these artistic careers. And I think that was just a really logical place for them to be at that time. Like, they both want to be together, but they're so frustrated because, they don't have stable careers that allow them to just be together on a consistent basis. And she just kind of lashed out at him and he lashed out at her back. And I think the other thing in this movie is kind of addresses the idea of soulmates and finding that person at the right time, because I believe that those two characters are meant to be together, and I feel like the movie probably wants you to believe that too, but I kind of think the timing just wasn't right. Though at the same time, it also addresses, I think, the conflict between being able to be with someone you love and also pursue something like that at the same time, which I think is a really real concern for people as well. And it just really worked. It really worked for me the way the movie did it.
I don't know. I feel like maybe it was. I don't think Sebastian was all that likable. I feel like, and I also feel like Mia never really liked Jazz. She just did it because she loved him, and it's like, you know, if that was such a big deal to him, then maybe they weren't meant to be together, because like that was like the only thing. It really felt like that was the only thing he cared about, was the music, to me at least.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand where you're coming from with that. I just didn't. I felt like he did love her, though. I think it also kind of, the way it plays out at the end of the movie, sort of reflects the fact that, you know, he wasn't his best self when he was in that relationship with her. And I think that's why at the end of the movie, I think he is the character who's, you know, obviously doing something that he wants to do, but he's, I think, filled with regret at the end of the movie.
I thought she was more filled with regret, because it seemed like she was a lot more upset than he was.
I don't think so. I think he was more upset, I think, because he, you know, even when you see like he's living by himself, he ended up making the same bar and using the same name that she always wanted him to. And just the way, I don't know, I love that last scene where they see each other in the bar together. I feel like there's just so much hurt behind his eyes in that moment. And like, man, I think he's just trying to communicate to her, like, I'm really sorry that I screwed everything up 5 years ago. And, you know, I'm really happy you're successful, but
I don't know. I feel like from the two looks on their faces, she looked way more like she couldn't even bear to be there. And he kind of just had like this, hey, you know, I'm sorry it didn't work out. That's what I interpreted. So
I think what I got from it was more, she had moved on, but she was still a little bit wistful about what they had together. And I feel like he had moved on enough that he was able to function, but I think he was still hung up a bit. And that's what I got, at least. But yeah, it's interesting that you saw it differently. Like I
definitely read it the opposite.
Yeah, like I definitely read it the opposite way, that he was more regretful about it. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, their relationship, I thought was great, but I can understand some of the things you're saying for sure.
Also, what was the deal with her husband being way older than her? Was that, that just was like a little jarring for me, because he looked much older.
He definitely does seem to be older. I almost think they picked a character that just kind of naturally didn't feel like a match for her. I think to more establish that those two belong together, that Gosling and her belong together, because it's like, it's not that he does anything unlikable, but you just kind of see those two together, and you see her and Gosling together, and I don't know, at least the way I took it was, man, like she should have been with Ryan Gosling. But
yeah, I mean, I could see that.
I feel like that's just a way the movie, based on the casting and his performance and even what he says, I feel like it just establishes, like, he's not a bad guy or anything, but oh man, she should have been with Ryan Gosling. Like, that's what I got from it. Another thing that bothers some people with this movie that it gets flack for, there's two things I want to get into. One is I didn't have a problem with this. Now, this is interesting because Jessa saw it with me, and she liked the movie a lot. Like, she saw it with me that initial time we saw it in theaters, and she liked the movie a lot, but she's a really good singer, and like, I guess, like, I mean, I haven't done a bunch of musicals or anything. Like, singing is not as something I'm technical at, but she had a problem with the fact that they're not great singers, and I didn't have a problem with that.
I mean, I thought that Ryan Gosling's singing was worse than Emma Stone's, but I mean, it didn't bother me. That's not something I was hung up on.
See, my thing with that is, another reason why I don't feel like this movie is predicated on the musical technicality of it. I feel like the music is complimentary, and more importantly, I feel like the music in this movie is personal. Like, I feel like most of the songs that are sung are personally important to those two characters, and I feel like, you know, it doesn't paint them to be like professional singers. Like, Ryan Gosling is, you know, he's a jazz pianist, and Mia is, you know, an actress, and I think she's an okay singer, but obviously he's not a great singer. But I feel like the singing works for both their characters. Like, I didn't have a problem with that at all. But Jessa, as soon as she walked out of the movie, she's like, why did they not get better singers to be in this movie? Like, they were terrible. And I think that's a common thing with people who are, I guess, like, trained singers, that they had an issue with that. But I didn't have a problem with it at all. And I was just curious to see if you noticed that.
Yeah, I heard some people complaining about Ryan Gosling singing more and about their dancing, but you know, it did not bother me at all. So
yeah, okay, cool. Because yeah, it didn't bother me at all either. I thought it was fine, and I thought it made sense for those characters. And I thought, like, I love the when they're singing "City of Stars" in their apartment together. Like, I feel like it's just a personal moment, and I didn't watch that scene like, oh my god, they need to like be hitting these notes, man. Like I just didn't do that. The other thing that really annoyed me is I've seen people like complaining that Ryan Gosling's character is mansplaining jazz in that one scene, and that is BS to me. Like that is just capital B, capital S. Like I feel like this movie gives both characters plenty of due in terms of them talking to the other person about things that they're interested in. I don't feel like it's like Ryan Gosling is singled out as like, oh, he's such a mansplainer. Like I didn't get that in the
he's
least.
literally just trying to explain something he loves deeply to someone that doesn't care about it. So yeah, you're gonna have to like explain it in a way that sounds a little pretentious, but I mean that's just because that's the way he thought about it.
And he also like he truly cares about it. Like that's just those two characters getting to know each other and him telling her something he's truly passionate about. I mean, the scene right before that, she's telling him about movies and like how she got into acting and stuff. And I feel like it's the same thing. Like, yeah, I figured you wouldn't look at it that way, but I've read that, and that always is a criticism that bothers me.
Yeah, I saw people complaining about the whole thing that he was like trying to be the savior of jazz, and it's like he wasn't trying to be the savior of jazz. He just wanted to open his own jazz bar. That's all it was.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's someone who's passionate about jazz and thinks the music is dying. It's not that he wants to be like this, messiah. He just wants to open his own club. I mean, I don't know. I didn't get that at all.
That's a load.
So what else? What did you think? Did you like the ending? Like, let's say the last 10 minutes?
I thought that the whole idea, I actually interpreted the ending differently than you two. I thought the whole idea was that, first of all, the movie was more about them making their dreams become real than the romance. And that also that their dreams were more important than the romance. That was the two things I drew from that ending. Not that there were, maybe that was what I was supposed to get, that they were soulmates and they just didn't end up together. But I felt like it was like, what was more important was that they accomplished what they set out to do, and they both did.
See, that's interesting because, yeah, I do think that as well. But to me, it's like it really is like they both go hand in hand. I think the movie basically, one of the biggest themes of the movie is conflict when you're trying to, it's like love versus your dreams, or it's like trying to find true love in the midst of pursuing your quote unquote dreams. And I think the movie just addresses that really well. And I mean, those two characters, and I think that's kind of what makes the movie tragic is ultimately for those characters, I guess their careers ended up winning out. But I think it's also kind of reflects timing. Like, I think if those two characters maybe had met at a different time in their lives, or maybe a little bit later, like maybe, or handled things differently in the moment, things would have worked out. But because of mistakes that they made, especially Ryan Gosling, I just felt it kind of destroyed the relationship. And I did you tear up at all at the end? I'm guessing not.
No, in fact, I didn't really get the whole, like, were you supposed to believe that was all like a fake ending and that they were going to end up together when they showed that? Because I thought it was pretty obvious that was not the real deal. That was just like a kind of like a reminiscence.
No, I think it was definitely supposed to just be like a kind of a creative way of addressing that, like basically showing the tragedy of it, but in an interesting way. I don't think I mean, maybe some people watched that and thought that was going to be real, but I know I definitely didn't. But I can see people seeing that though, because I'm sure people, a lot of, especially like most moviegoers watching this, probably assumed that they were going to be together in the end.
Yeah.
And I bet they watched the first part of that and were like, okay, the movie's finally course correcting itself, and these two are getting together. Like, but I kind of didn't think that for a second. But yeah, I don't know. The ending really, really works for me. I thought it was just tragic, but also kind of, I don't know. I just found it kind of life affirming at the same time. I just thought it was great.
Yeah, I think because I wasn't very invested in the relationship, I was just like, whatever. Like, honestly,
fair enough.
I wasn't invested in that relationship really at all.
That's interesting. That is interesting because I don't know. For me, it worked 1,000%. So, all right. Anything else?
I want to talk about some of the jokes because I thought they were really funny.
Oh, yeah.
They felt a little out of place in the movie.
Yeah, the humor definitely worked for me too. I mean, everything worked in this movie for me. I don't know, but I thought the humor was really good. Like, what specific?
Like when she was on the pier and she was like explaining that she got a call back about a TV show and it was like Criminal Minds meets the OC.
Yeah,
like, I thought that was hilarious, but it just like, I don't know, like was not the kind of joke I expect. And then the other one was the joke when she was like, it's the Prius, and every single set of keys is for like a Prius.
Yeah. I don't know. I that definitely worked for me too.
I mean, I thought the jokes were funny. I mean, I don't think that was a bad thing or anything. It was just weird because I thought those jokes were really funny and just like didn't really fit the whole old Hollywood theme.
I think that's the other thing about this movie is it just felt fresh to me. Like it didn't feel dated. I feel like maybe partly because of the humor. Like I feel like it's not, I wouldn't call it a comedy, but it never gets, other than maybe the very end, it never gets overly or like tiresomely serious in my opinion. I feel like there's always humor to kind of intercut everything that's going on, or at least most of the time there is.
Yeah, just like
even the scene,
rug.
even the scene I think is really funny is when it's a serious moment because Ryan Gosling is missing Emma Stone's performance, but he's doing this ridiculous photo shoot with this creepy cameraman. It's like, all right, just bite your lip a little bit there. Yeah, bite your lip. And he's obviously just hating life and biting his lip. And that really worked for me. So the humor definitely worked for me throughout the whole movie. And I love the scene, the Iran scene. I thought that was classic. Like,
yeah, that was pretty funny.
And even just the way he's like, well, Mia, guess I'll see you in the movies. And then just like puts his sunglasses back on and walks away. I don't know. Maybe it's just my kind of humor, but
I like the jokes a lot.
Yeah. All right. Well, final thoughts then, or anything else you want to cover?
Pretty much the biggest good thing about this film was the cinematography and the coloring. The sets were great. You know, I feel like that was it had amazing cinematography, and that was my number one takeaway from it.
All right. Well, very, very cool. And obviously I love it. So it's a 10 for me. What are you going to give this thing?
I guess I'm going to go the same road as you and go to an 8.5.
Oh, okay. That's actually better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I probably like came off as really negative, but you know, the things I liked overblew the things I didn't like by a lot. So
you definitely enjoyed the movie. So.
Oh yeah, like I said, I thought the jokes were funny. I thought the cinematography was captivating. The acting was really good.
Cool.
Just didn't buy that relationship, unfortunately.
Fair enough. Well, I'm glad you liked it at least. So. All right, guys, this has been a doozy of an episode. So
yeah.
we've covered some ground here. You've all gained some insight into movies that Dave and I hold dear. So there'll be more of these perfect 10 episodes to follow. And get ready, guys. Next episode's gonna be big. We're doing we're doing Star Wars Last Jedi. So this is a bi-yearly type episode here because. Obviously, these movies only come out once every couple years, so it's gonna be huge. So get ready.
Yeah, and then keep an eye out for the end of the year because we're gonna have some best of lists coming out for you.
Yeah, we're gonna be seeing a lot of movies here coming up. So
yeah, to make those lists.
So look for those. Do you have your tickets yet for Star Wars or?
No, I'm probably gonna see it during the day on like Saturday or Sunday.
That works. I amazingly just bought my tickets today, and like. The theater, there were like so many seats available for the 7:45 p.m. Thursday night showing, which I was shocked at my local theater. I thought that was going to be
movie just tanks at the box office.
Yeah, what if it makes like 2 million opening weekend? Like just nobody really goes to see it. But I can't. I don't. Is everybody seen this thing in 3D? Like I didn't check the 3D seating times, but. I couldn't. I wanted to see it in standard anyway, but I was shocked how many seats were open.
I still think people don't buy their movie tickets until like a day or two before, even for Star Wars.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. So, all right, we'll see. It's all will be decided in the world of Luke Skywalker and Rey and all those characters. So we'll be coming at you next week with that episode. So stay tuned and obviously follow us on Facebook at the Serious Film Critics. We're on Twitter at Serious_Critics. We're tweeting from time to time, so keep an eye out. We're also on Tumblr under, I don't know, search the Serious Film Critics or whatever. And yeah, guys, I think we have an Instagram too. We're not, I don't know if we'll use it.
I probably should post something on there because I made it and I've done nothing since.
Yeah. Dave made us an Instagram. We'll try to use it from here and there. Other than that, guys, thanks for hanging out with us tonight and stay classy. We'll see you next time.